People that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist? You're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs? Fuck you. War.
Seductive. Quite sure he's right. Obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
War.
This is the end game.
Okay, it is Monday, February 10th, 2025, the 22nd day of the Golden Age. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. Today, we are going to talk about that great cultural lullaby singing us all back to sleep. Of course, I'm talking about the Super Bowl. And you see the hat? I'm wearing the opt-out hat today. I opted out of the Super Bowl. That op was not something I was going to participate in, though a great many people did participate in it. And apparently they want extra credit for participating. And congratulations to everyone. Before we get into that, I figured it would be a good opportunity to point out the merch store in case you would like to opt out yourself. You can find all these links in the show notes or on linktree.com/I'm your moderator or in a number of other places, but cancelcodetour.com or cancelcodetour.myspreadshop.com. You can get all the merch over in this location, Reality Prime, Cancel Code Tour. See you in the gulags. Okay, Kami, you sound vaccinated. All the best. All right. So, have a look there if that's your sort of thing. And otherwise, let's go ahead and get into it. So a grand cultural lullaby is what we're experiencing with cultural events like this. The idea on the regime's part, from their perspective, is to get everybody back on the same page. This is something that they've been trying to do for years and years and years. And occasionally our side helps them to do that. And I'm a bit confused as to why we do that. I think it's because everybody likes to have the experience of these cultural moments that everyone kind of enjoys together, and they put politics and the rest of it aside, and they just have this moment where everybody does the same thing and watches the same thing and thinks the same thing. That's the way to move forward. People are concerned with unity, and if you've listened to this podcast for any extended period of time, you will understand that I don't care about that at all. In fact, I think that demands for unity and toward unity are destructive and malicious. I have never seen one that makes sense to me. I don't think that we need to be unified. I don't think that we need to share the same opinions. And it's fine that my friends don't agree with me sometimes when I say these things. And you'll find over time that more of them end up doing so. That's been my experience, at least. And whether it is or isn't, whether people would agree with me or not, I'm still going to keep going in this direction because I think that the direction is necessary to explore. And I don't think that it is getting the proper degree of exploration. And that's unfortunate because I think that that's the sort of thing that's going to make sure that the normies don't wake up. Because yesterday we had another one of those big days where we are supposed to believe that the psyop, no matter how obviously malicious, is still for the good. It's going to wake up the normies. The normies, of course, will be woken up through a never-ending series of lies. One day they'll realize, that's about enough of these lies. I'm going to go ahead and just believe the truth now, despite no one ever telling me what that truth is. As usual, I have to cater to the people who are going to get upset and say, oh, he's blackpilling. No, I'm not. I've been talking about an American Renaissance for years. I'm like one of the most optimistic people in the truth movement about where all this is headed. I want to get there quickly so that people stop having their lives destroyed as a result of our entire culture accepting all of these lies and trying to get back on the same page with the worst people. I don't actually want to reunite with communists and by saying, oh, yeah, you guys are kind of right. And so we are all being corralled back into the pen. That is the entire point. Now, I went on John Harold, Patel Patriot's daily show that he does 5 days a week now. It's called the Daily Herald. Every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, he does an hour of the news from his perspective, from a devolution perspective. I think the show's really great. He gets to touch on a lot of the key topics of the day and to kind of provide another view from what we would normally be seeing in the quote unquote conservative mainstream. So we went on there and talked about a little bit of the op and its intent. And, you know, even the people who are very pro Super Bowl who watched yesterday and want everybody to be happy that they saw what was on TV. They understand that it's an op. They just think that we have this undeniable level of control where every element of the op is specifically planned to generate a certain response, and that across the board, all of that op is being planned and executed by the patriots, by the white hats who are in full control. Now, I think that we should always understand some considerable level of control, but that's not always direct control. Some of it, some of the time, is just controlling the parameters, right? If you're going bowling with kids, I just was recently at a child's birthday party for a 2-year-old, where the activity was bowling. Now, 2-year-olds can't bowl on their own, so you put up one of those little stands that it's a little chute that kind of sends the ball down, and you just kind of direct it, and then it goes down the lane, and then you could put those bumpers in the gutters so that you can't get a gutter ball. So the ball in some sense is controlled, but it's not direct control. It's not like there's a hand on the ball choosing that it goes this way and that down the lane, creating the perfect direction to always get a strike, to get the exact intended purpose. It is a level of control saying, hey, you know what? The ball's not going to go in the gutter. And the 2-year-old's not going to have to carry that 10-pound ball and swing his arm back and then throw the ball. He's just going to have his dad place it from his hands onto the top of this chute, and then they're going to push it down together, and then it's going to go, right? So you got that kind of control. Then you have the sort of control that Mike Tyson would have if he was in a boxing ring and I was boxing against him. Now, I'm not a boxer. Mike Tyson, even in his advanced age, no longer able to beat the great Jake Paul or whatever that was a few weeks ago, could still nonetheless beat the hell out of me. And if he did that, and we were before he did that, if we were in a boxing match, in a boxing ring, Mike Tyson and I exchanging blows, but, you know, I would be trying my best to land punches on Iron Mike. So many that I could, in fact, knock him out. That would be my goal. And my sub goal would be to protect myself so that I didn't get killed within the first 10 seconds, as Mike Tyson used to do to professional boxers in the heavyweight division when I was a kid watching him in the 90s. He used to go in and absolutely just crush people. Okay. But Mike Tyson and I are in a boxing ring, and I am trying my best to beat up Mike Tyson or at least defend myself so that my life is not ended by Mike Tyson's enormous fists with his bull-like body and superhuman strength. There is no point at which Mike Tyson would not be in control of that fight. But I'm still fighting, and I'm still trying to land blows. I'm trying to hurt him. In the ideal scenario, I would beat him. I would win in this boxing match against Mike Tyson. Except I don't have the ability to beat Mike Tyson in a boxing match unless Mike Tyson was, I don't know, sick or almost dead or considerably older than he is. But then, of course, I would be considerably older as well. There's virtually no circumstance where I can imagine myself beating Mike Tyson in a boxing match. Okay? And so if I was boxing against Mike Tyson, he would be in full control the whole time. Whenever he wanted to finish the fight, he could probably do that. He would probably make sure that even if I was able to hit him, a little shot to the ribs, maybe something just glancing off his face. Maybe I sort of kind of land a jab. At every point, Mike Tyson would be in control of that fight, despite not directing any of my activity and me not playing along with a script that would indicate a Mike Tyson victory. It would just be a certainty that Mike Tyson would defeat me. He would be in control the whole time. Or like if, I was boxing the 2-year-old who can't even bowl yet. That 2-year-old might be trying to take swings at me. Might be coming after me. Oh, I got you this time. No, you don't, kid. No, you don't. You still don't. I would be in control the whole time, but the kid would be trying. The kid would be trying to land punches on me. It wouldn't work. The kid would never hurt me. It would take just years of relentless punishment from that kid to finally knock me out. The boxing match would have to last forever. Okay. Same thing with me and Mike Tyson. Total control the whole time, though not actually directing any of the action on the other side. Just control because of the relative advantage that Mike Tyson would have over me or that I would have over the 2-year-old throughout the entire match. Okay. So there's never any point at which I would be threatened by their activity, but nonetheless, I'm not controlling their activity except to the extent that I could potentially stop it if I wanted to. That is also a situation of full control that doesn't require everything being scripted and choreographed. I mean, we are watching scripted and choreographed events playing out on television, but they don't have to be scripted and choreographed by our side for the specific intent of helping our side, for our side to be in full control. So full control doesn't actually get you to the place that a lot of people are believing that it does, which is the one side directing all of the other side's activity to the point where all of the other side's activity is a product of our control to the extent that it is helping to wake people up as part of their goal. Okay. It can be our goal. It can be our side's goal, and our side can be in such a dominant position of control that no matter what the enemy attempts to do, it is beneficial to us. And that's something we've been talking about on this show for years. And I think that, if that is the definition of full control, I can get mostly on board with that definition. All right. But not in its entirety. The other side is still trying to tell a story. The other side is still trying in general. They want to get everybody back on the same side, perceiving all the situations as they play out in the real world in real time as something that benefits their agenda. They want people perceiving their reality through the lens of the mainstream media, of the mainstream culture. That agenda is real. That agenda is playing out in reality. The reality as it emerges is being interpreted through the lens of promotion of that agenda. Okay. But that's not how we're talking about it. The idea that Lady Gaga in a white hat, in a white outfit, now makes Lady Gaga a white hat, or is she just controlled by white hats? And it's hard to understand. I would like to know what the actual claim is so that we can talk about the actual claim. But Lady Gaga, many people in our community would call her, theorize that she's a man, for one, that she's a Satanist for another. She's certainly a materialist. I mean, unless the whole thing is just an act that's been running for well over a decade, then she's that. She's friends with, Maria Abramovich, isn't she? She's down with that whole thing. People believe with good reason that that's a pretty satanic artist who seems to be happy about propagating evil in the world through her quote unquote art. A lot of celebrity friends, creepy part of the celebrity culture. I think most people are in agreement about that. Lady Gaga performed at Joe Biden's fake inauguration. She just under full control the whole time? Maybe. But at that point, everybody was like, oh, this is the Hunger Games. And look at her brooch. She's dressed like the Hunger Games. And so Lady Gaga, for the last 5 years or whatever, has been an evil tranny. And now she's a white hat because she's wearing a white hat on TV. Maybe. And maybe that's a product of full control. Or maybe the side of the evil Satanists knows what cultural cues might signal certain things to our side, and they know that everybody still wants to go back to sleep and wants to unify. And because of that, we are all relatively easy to hoodwink. And so they're just still hoodwinking us. But the idea is that somehow that can't be true. And so we watched yesterday, and I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I haven't watched the commercials. Like, I opted out, didn't watch it, but I have watched the reaction, because you can watch the reaction from our side, from the other side, and you can see how people are responding to what is being shown to everyone. And what's being shown to everyone is supposed to corral people safely back into the pen. Okay. The people who were telling us that we are evil, that we're going to kill grandma from standing too close at the grocery store. We're going to kill grandma for not wearing a mask. We're going to kill grandma for being anti-science. We're going to kill everybody for being anti-science when it comes to climate change. But in terms of the very deadly pandemic, we were anti-science and killing grandma just because we didn't believe hard enough in the very deadly pandemic. And then we were killing grandma because we didn't take the vaccines. And then we were threatening democracy because we didn't believe in the stolen election. We didn't believe Joe Biden received 81 million real lawful American votes. We were threatening democracy at that point. We were threatening democracy with the very violent insurrection. We were threatening democracy by not supporting Ukraine's democracy, even though Ukraine is a fake country. The people who told us all that, the people who ran all those ops for the last 5 years plus 9 years, nearly 10 years now of the Donald Trump era. Now those people are our best friends and they're teaching us about patriotism. That's what yesterday was. And we're being told that America is back, patriotism is back, because the NFL is back. And I found all of this rather shocking. And let's start out actually. Let me see if I can, hold for processing a moment. My desktop does this weird thing where it just piles everything up on top of everything else, making things impossible to find occasionally. And it's very, very difficult to navigate at times. Well, you know what? We're going to hold on for a second. I need to find this, this Brad Pitt commercial. I don't know where it went. Brad Pitt yesterday, and hey, man, Brad Pitt's a cool guy, right? I got nothing wrong with Brad Pitt. I don't hate Brad Pitt. Maybe Brad Pitt is just the best, okay? I'm happy to believe that, but I'm not sure that this commercial is actually communicating what people believe it's communicating. And I would like to go ahead and show it to you if I could actually ever find it. Now, it's worth recalling that Brad Pitt was married, or is he still married, to Angelina Jolie. And they have some kids that they have conceived and birthed, and they also have some kids that they got from other people, and they almost transed one of theirs, and who knows? Who knows? Things get weird when you're starting to talk about Hollywood. But here's how People magazine covered Brad Pitt's Super Bowl commercial. Just take a look at this headline right here. Brad Pitt calls for America to huddle up in patriotic special message ahead of 2025 Super Bowl. By lifting others, that's how we rise up. Oh man, that sounds so unifying. That gets me to want to be back on the same page with the very people who destroyed all of culture. Now, Angelina Jolie, I think, isn't she like John Voight's daughter or niece or something? I think it's daughter. He's a patriotic dude, so maybe that whole thing's just an op, you know? Could be. All sorts of things could be true. Let's hear from Brad Pitt himself.
By lifting others, that's how we rise up. We, the people. Today, we come together. Not just these players and coaches, or these teams and sides. We, all of us. The dreamers, the warriors, the builders and believers.
It's okay, you're gonna be just fine.
Brought together to celebrate our greatest game. The game that teaches us what we can achieve when we gather together in that most American of formations. The one most fundamental to every play call in every game. The huddle. Think about it. When we are bound by a common goal, we've reached heights, authored achievements, pushed progress, not alone, but together, in ways that have lifted the world and one another.
Orville, we need to reinforce here and here.
The huddle is a metaphor for our history, for the power found in our shared purpose. It's in the will to imagine flight, and then soar skyward.
They changed the course of human history.
In the courage to fight and defeat the enemy.
It's the toughest fight in the history of the Marine.
In the heart to unite and bridge the difference.
And sisters and brothers, I have a dream today. 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff on Apollo 11.
It's in the audacity to say, we will go there.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
It's in our collective spirit, not just in the highest times, but in the hardest, in the darkness and the trouble and the struggle.
Hurricane Helene caused devastating flooding in Georgia
Nightmare
and
fire
North Carolina.
conditions across Los Angeles County.
It's there, in our unity, that we form hope and find strength. Sure, the huddle is just a rough circle, a simple oval, a crowd of 11, or a country of more than 300 million on the field and across the land. It's the place where we meet, eye to eye.
Oh, God. So this was, I guess, inspiring to people. And the point of making this is that people will find it inspiring. This is the cultural iconography of America's 20th century, and mixed in with some of our last 2.5 decades but mostly the 20th century. These are mostly images from our past, from our childhood, from the time before we were alive, when America was inventing and creating and becoming a superpower, this great nation. We're going to think about all those times and how the thing about all those times is we were all unified, except we weren't. That doesn't even make sense. I mean, it's absurd. There have been political divisions in this country that have spanned our entire lifetimes. There's a false reality portrayed in this country by our entertainment and by our media, by the cultural communications from on high, from the authoritative source. That is what we are continually fed. And I made this meme last night because it was incredible to me that, having just gone through a week of talking about the propaganda being disseminated by USAID around the world and here in the United States of America, we were so happy to simply accept a different kind of propaganda. And so I know Drake had some talk about him because Kendrick Lamar, oh, he slammed him. He called Drake a pedophile. Well, no, he didn't. And the song is 9 months old. And come on. The Drake meme, no, we're saying to USAID propaganda, but yes, of course, about corporate globo homo sports propaganda. That's what happened. Just a different brand of propaganda, and a different brand of propaganda means it's okay. This propaganda that gets us all back onto the same page on behalf of the regime, that's the good kind. You can tell because it's during the NFL, and you can tell that the NFL is good because Donald Trump is there. Now, Donald Trump did go there, and then he left before the end of the game. And then he had a series of posts on Truth Social, some of them kind of making fun of the experience. I doubt that everyone would take it that way, but I think it's pretty hard not to see it that way. He said, here they are, actually. Here's the two of them back to back. This morning, I think he put the two. Oh, no, these were actually last night. Let's just go ahead and share this. So Trump says last night, the only one that had a tougher night than the Kansas City Chiefs was Taylor Swift. She got booed out of the stadium. We can just take a little break right here. We might as well see Taylor Swift and this moment. Here it is, right here. So Taylor Swift was put up on the big board and she was booed. And then she recognized that she was being booed and kind of laughed like, what's happening? Why are they booing me? And that couldn't have been scripted. All that was natural, you see. They cheered Donald Trump. Let's go back for his other post to Truth Social. He said, the worst part of the Super Bowl by far was watching the kickoff where, as the ball is sailing through the air, the entire field is frozen stiff. College football does not do it and won't. Whose idea was it to ruin the game? Good question. And that is a terrible rule change. The kickoff is ridiculous now. And who knows? Maybe they would have had exciting kickoffs and kickoff returns in years prior. And now it's just, maybe they had one yesterday. I have no idea because I didn't watch the game. But the kickoff sucks. I did see some of the NFL this year, and the kickoff program is awful. Donald Trump is making fun of it. The way he said whose decision was this kind of reminded me when he used to ask who made the call to stop the counting of votes on November 3rd, 2020. Was it Trump? Does full control extend to Trump changing the NFL kickoff rule or changing the schedule to 17 games? I mean, it has to, right? Or not, who knows? So Trump sounded like he was making fun of the game. Most people said the game was boring. Most people I have heard from watched the game and told me that they watched it for one of two reasons: because Trump was going, or because they were waiting for Elon Musk's commercials. Because there was some rumor that Elon Musk had bought 5 30-second spots and was going to be using them to expose the malfeasance of our illegitimate government through the Doge process. It was going to be like a day full of based in red pill Doge releases. And by the end of the Super Bowl, all of the Americans who turned in to watch a football game would instead understand that the government has been hoodwinking us for all this time. That was going to wake up the normies en masse. Now, it didn't happen. So, whoops, I guess. But yeah, people justified watching a 4-hour commercial for the regime and the country the regime wants to bestow upon us by saying, well, at least we're going to see Elon Musk's commercials, as if they would have never been played online or as if there was some sort of standard on time. We need to watch them immediately. We got to be sure that we see Elon Musk's commercials. And there was one Elon Musk related commercial, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But let's start here. Okay. In the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, there were a number of stories in the mainstream media about claims that the NFL was rigging games on behalf of the Kansas City Chiefs to get them to the Super Bowl. And people said essentially that the Kansas City Chiefs weren't all that good this year. They were kind of underperforming in all their games, but then would be bailed out by the referees in a crucial moment. And people believe that they were likely to do that in the Super Bowl as well. And so here are a couple of let's just go through a couple of these articles. This is NBC News from February 5th. So this was last week, obviously before the game. NFL referees forced to respond to Kansas City Chiefs conspiracy theories about bias. So there were conspiracy theories out there. All right. And this is kind of the central narrative that we get in all of these stories. Commissioner Goodell's comments, he said it was ridiculous. Officiating crews do not work the same team more than twice each regular season. It is insulting and preposterous to hear conspiracy theories that somehow 17 officiating crews consisting of 138 officials are colluding to assist one team. And that's basically the same claim that people like Matt Taibbi made in the wake of 9/11 and the years to follow. Too many people would have to be in on it for that to ever be a real thing. And of course, people were also saying the same about the government directing censorship efforts, because there was no way they could get all the private companies who were operating on financial incentives alone in a free market to censor the American people. And then, lo and behold, Matt Taibbi himself is pushing the limited hangout op we now know as the Twitter files. The statement from the NFL went on. There are many things that fans can worry about over a 17-game season, such as coaching decisions, player injuries, the weather, and yes, even close calls on incredible plays made by incredible athletes. But you can rest assured that on every single down, NFL officials, both on the field and in the replay booth, are doing everything humanly possible to officiate every play correctly. Okay? So the bulletin couldn't have been clearer, with keyboard warriors and meme artists constantly spreading baseless referee and Chiefs conspiracy theories even though yellow flags have been falling in Kansas City's favor for years. Whatever. Who knows? I mean, you could take all of these articles and compare them to how election fraud narratives are handled, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, they're doing the same thing. They're saying it's a conspiracy theory. They're giving us some indirect rationale as to why this sort of thing could never happen. It's just too crazy to think that the NFL might have one person on each officiating team or squad or unit who might be corrupt, or that maybe they are all just corrupt. 138 people understanding that their jobs as referees are exactly the same as the referee in a WWF ring, or WWE, I guess it is now. Football is a real sport, in quotes, whereas professional wrestling is a fake sport, in quotes. Professional boxing is a real sport, right? Even though it's kind of controlled by the gambling interests. You know, boxing is one of those things. Oh, he threw the fight. Oh, he stayed down for the count. People have believed boxing's rigged forever, but that's the real sport. WWE is the fake sport. The NFL is a real sport. The NBA is a gay soap opera about celebrities, and they've had officiating scandals with actual cheaters cheating for the purposes of winning bets. But the NFL, no way. The NFL is 100% real, not rigged. That's what they have to let us know. They even made a media op out of it. This is how you should know that. This is how you should know that there's no actual problem with the NFL officiating, because it's just a big joke.
We're here at Super Bowl opening night, and we got some questions that need to be answered. Patrick.
By the way, the Super Bowl has an opening night now. They make a 5 or 6 day long television show out of this with red carpets and fashion shows. It's ridiculous.
Patrick, for your whole career, you have had so many great people help you win. So who is your favorite ref?
That's hilarious. All the refs are great, man. All the refs are great. They do the best they can. And go out there and play the game the right way.
Is there one that you give a Christmas card to every year, possibly?
Not that I can remember. I'll have to talk to some of my teammates and we can try to figure it out.
Travis, what do you love more? Taylor Swift or phantom 15-yard roughing the passer penalties in the playoffs?
It's a good question. Anybody else?
Now, I'm a conspiracy theorist, but all that looked totally scripted and staged. A guy with credentials to get that close to the two NFL superstars on the Kansas City Chiefs asked those questions. They took it as totally unserious. Oh, this guy's some kind of troll. He's just trolling us. We don't even have to take these questions seriously. Everybody knows the NFL is not rigged and that the referees would never make fake calls to advantage one team over another, even though they've been doing that for decades and decades and decades. By the way, I used to be a massive sports fan. I used to watch every single Pittsburgh Steelers game, every single Pittsburgh Penguins game. I used to watch some Pirates games sometimes, but come on, 30 years of nonstop losing because that sport is so ridiculously rigged. Yeah, professional sports used to be part of my life, a big part of my life. So I've certainly known much of what there is to know about sports at various periods of my life. I don't pay a lot of attention now. But you could look back, 6, 7 years ago when, wasn't it the LA Rams, the New Orleans Saints, some totally ridiculous pass interference call, put the Rams in the Super Bowl. I believe it was the NFC Championship game. Anyway, there are plenty of ridiculous calls over a great many years that would lead people to believe that the NFL is actually making moves to provide the product it wants to provide. Not that the games are settled in a natural way where people can be sure that the rightful winner is represented in the next round of the playoffs. It's not like that. And as a Steeler fan in the Tom Brady era, I certainly had plenty of exposure to that. But it's all a big joke. The NFL just covers it right up. Let's go to the Associated Press. More of the same, printed the exact same interview from Roger Goodell. NFL Referees Union calls allegations of bias toward the Chiefs insulting. So the refs are insulted. Commissioner Goodell's comments that it is ridiculous to presume that NFL officials are not doing everything possible to make the right call on every play is spot on. Okay, and then the rest of the same quote there. This is Fox News. NFL Referees Union blasts theories claiming existence of Chiefs bias. It is insulting and preposterous. Yes, they're all just so insulted. How could you, they say. We even got it in Just Jared. This is a gossip mag and website. I actually used to know this guy. They had Terrell Owens weigh in. He said Terrell Owens is, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but former superstar wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers. He says, it's crazy because I played the game and I'm watching the game and I'm looking at all these calls and that's benefiting the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes is smart. He's dinking around. He's causing the flag. You know what I mean? He's getting the benefit. He didn't even get hit in the Texans game, 15-yard flag. The guy, Will Anderson, barely hit him. That can stop the momentum of the game. At that point in time, the Houston Texans were in the game. Those calls right there advances them, gives them extra downs. It changed the whole complexity of the game. Are there ways to influence NFL games? Yes, of course there are. Right? And so let's compare that to how we've thought of our elections. We can see that the elections are fake. We can see that the 2020 elections are fake. We can see that the 2018 elections were fake. Most people knew that after the 2018 election. Most people who were paying attention, at least. People in the truth community, I mean. Certainly people could see that the 2022 elections were rigged and stolen. The red wave never materializing. John Fetterman, a walking vaccine injury, becomes a senator in Pennsylvania, a purple state that Trump just won again. Voted John Fetterman into office in 2022 in legitimate elections that no one did anything about. People on our side barely even complained about the midterms, and how could they? They told everybody to go out and vote as hard as possible. And they did that in 2021 and 2023 and last year, and they're going to do it this year. In fact, they're already out doing it this year, supporting Scott Pressler. I guess there's another Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. We're going to win it by voting as hard as we possibly can. Elections haven't been fixed at all, but they sure do feel fixed, right? Because Donald Trump, he was called the winner. And you know what? Referees, it feels like the referees have been fixed too. I saw this morning on The Score, just another sports app and website. And this is Kansas City Chiefs aging superstar. No offense to DeAndre Hopkins, an excellent wide receiver, but maybe on kind of the downside of a great career. We'll see. Headline, Chiefs Hopkins, are y'all going to talk about the refs now? And he said, it's my first year being with the Chiefs, and I saw a lot of things in the media about the refs, but obviously, shoot, what are you all going to say about the refs and us? What are you all going to say now about the refs and us? There was a lot of touchy calls. Are y'all going to report that? Are y'all going to talk about the refs now? The officiating has been heavily scrutinized during the Chiefs' run to Super Bowl licks, which prompted NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to label the theory that the referees were helping Kansas City ridiculous while calling the league's referees association called the conspiracy insulting and preposterous. So there's nothing to see here. The referees are just fine. In fact, the referees have always been fine. People had all these conspiracy theories about the referees. But if Kansas City could get their asses handed to them like that, 40-22 was the final score. Well, there's no way that the referees were rigging it on Kansas City's behalf. it's proven that the referees are legitimate, that the NFL is legitimate based on the outcome of this game. Just like it's proven that our election system is legitimate based on the outcome of the 2024 election. Now, I spent the better part of a year in the lead up to that fake election, throughout the fake campaign and the fake primaries before that, talking about how the regime, there was no way they'd be able to sell that Joe Biden or then Kamala could possibly beat Donald Trump in a legitimate election. And if they attempted to tell the country that Joe Biden beat Donald Trump, the country would reject that and know that the elections are fake and that their country had been overthrown. And the same became quickly obvious when the Kamala phase began. There was no way that the regime could sell a Kamala Harris win over Donald Trump to the country without exposing their election system. If they attempted to say that Biden or Kamala had won the election in 2024, everyone would know that our elections are bullshit. Saying that Joe Biden received 81 million real lawful American votes and had won in 2020 was preposterous, and people didn't really believe it. But at the same time, we'd had the very deadly pandemic, and all the normies out there, they believed that there was a very scary pandemic. They thought that Donald Trump was not competent to follow the science. Of course, normies all believe that they are smarter than Donald Trump is. So they knew Trump was bad for that. And they watched the communists go crazy throughout the summer of love, burning down cities, creating all sorts of mayhem and havoc all around the country based on George Floyd. They didn't want to deal with that anymore. As soon as the fake election was complete and Joe Biden was named the winner 4 or 5 days later, they just said, well, you know, I don't think Joe Biden really won, but maybe it's just better this way. We just want things to go back to normal. We just want everybody to get along again. We want to unify with everybody. We don't like this tension. We don't like our friends and our neighbors and our family members thinking that we're evil for liking Donald Trump or for being Republicans or whatever it is. So we'll just give him this one. Maybe it's just better to let the Trump era go. There's only so much Joe Biden could actually do in these 4 years, and then we'll just live to fight another day. We're going to get him in the midterms and everything will just be fine. And we saw how that went. We had 4 years of a fake president while people continued to pretend that the process was real and legitimate and that our government was real and legitimate, despite knowing that our country had actually been overthrown. Everybody, not everybody, but many people just shut up. And they were like, oh, well, you're threatening our institutions, repeating exactly what they heard on television. Okay. There was no point at which elections were remedied in those 4 years. But because Donald Trump was announced the winner by the television, and we were told that it was a massive landslide, even though that's been totally erased, everybody just accepted that was what it was. We actually had people on, quote unquote, our side making the argument that because Trump had been announced the winner in 2024, that actually proves that the 2020 election was also legitimate. Now, that's one of the dumbest, most dishonest things anybody could ever say, but it was said by people who were considered to be on our side at the time. How's that possible? Well, of course, it's not possible. Okay. It's not possible that Kamala was able to somehow achieve 74, 75 million votes. Is that what it is now? Trump won by about 2.5 million, we're told, in the popular vote, getting 77 some odd million votes. A very close election, very close. Elections have not been fixed, and we are now seeing the same op in the NFL, run in the NFL that was run in politics just a few months ago. For the better part of a year, I said, because there is no way they're going to be able to convince anybody that Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden or Kamala, they're going to tell us that Donald Trump won. And what they're going to do is fill out the rest of the government with uniparty candidates, construct an entire lawfare apparatus, and then attempt to ride out the Trump presidency for the next 4 years, keeping their system in place, keeping the American people committed to the idea that our elections are real and that our elections determine our leaders, even though we can see in countries all around the world that elections actually don't determine leaders and elections aren't fake or aren't real, anywhere. And we've tracked that for the last 2 years plus on this show. So I doubt that I need to convince any of my regular listeners about that fact. But we just had in microcosm in that story from DeAndre Hopkins and the narrative seeding in advance of that, we just had the same exact op promoting and supporting the legitimacy of, in this case, the NFL, and in that case, our election system and the regime's legitimacy. We do not have a legitimate government in place right now. We are still in a post-constitutional period. We are probably under military government, truth be told. And Donald Trump is the only official in that government with any provable legitimacy. His legitimacy is proven by his vast, overwhelming public mandate that is unchallenged by anyone at this point. Is there anyone out there saying that Donald Trump is not the rightful and duly elected president of the United States of America? I don't see anybody out there making that case. Maybe you guys see it. I don't know. Let me know in the chat. I'll take a look and see if anybody has seen a real case being made. Like there's actually a group of people asserting that Donald Trump is not really a legitimate president, okay? That he's not the legitimate leader of our country. The public mandate is fully behind Donald Trump. So whether our elections are real or fake is irrelevant. Donald Trump is recognized as having an overwhelming public mandate. And people even know what that mandate's about, despite how the regime tries to reframe that as everyone just voting for cheaper eggs and then finding out that they didn't even get that. Okay. So it's the rest of the government that needs its legitimacy supported. And there's no support for that anywhere except the support that Donald Trump himself provides to those other layers of government. And he's playing along with all that, and that's fine. Okay. And maybe Trump has a different view on the legitimacy of the government than I do. I kind of doubt that. There is no way that anyone in the Congress or the Senate can prove their legitimacy in office because they cannot prove that they won a lawful election based on only real American voters eligible to vote in that election, casting their real legitimate vote. We don't have an election system that is capable of providing for that. Okay. What we do have is an information system capable of allowing a comprehensive public understanding that Donald Trump is legitimate due to the vast and overwhelming public mandate. But there's no way to draw that from our election system. That's not possible. Okay. The reported results do not accurately reflect the will and intent of the American voter. There is no proof otherwise. So even if it was true, there's no reason for anybody to believe it. And of course, there's also very little chance that it's remotely true. So we have the same op run by the NFL and the same steps to run that op. Call the doubters conspiracy theorists, gaslight them about what they are watching with their own eyes, and then twist the story around on them, give them the result that counters the claim they're making, and tell them that by virtue of that result right there, you're wrong. And as we said, you're crazy. Our system's perfect, and you should just let us march forward with it. And of course, that's what people are doing when it comes to the election. Where is the push for election integrity? And the answer is it's nowhere, as predicted. That's not to say that Donald Trump's not going to bring that back around and that the full realization by the American public of our elections fakery is not going to happen. I fully believe that will happen. Okay. But it's not going to happen as a result of people actually pointing to our fake elections and being honest about them and saying, despite Donald Trump being declared the winner by the television, that election was still completely and totally fake. You've heard that in very few places in the media, and certainly none of the corporate media. By the way, maybe this is a good time to just insert this little nugget, this amazing bit of Maybe this is a red pill for some people. I'm not sure if it will be, because it's very hard to let go of the TV characters. I understand. But we'll just give it our best shot. How about that? So this is the New York Post today. This is the Murdoch-owned New York Post. It's important to remember. Fox buys Red Seat Ventures to tap podcast market, reuniting with Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. What? Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson, they're the new stars of the independent alternative media. They're so based and red-pilled now. They're not part of the mainstream media anymore. Now they are strictly devoted to waking up the normies. And that's why they were allowed to speak at the big Donald Trump arena events before the election and after the election. Madison Square Garden and Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., they were there for both of those events with the rest of the Super Friends and the fantasy team. And they all made their little presentations. That means that they're on our side forever. And thank goodness, because honestly, we were never going to stop watching them on television anyway. I mean, right, guys? They're our faves. Tucker Carlson, oh, he's in his little wood cabin up there in Maine, just having based and red-pilled conversations with the guys who did the limited hangout for Twitter. Huh, it's great. All the other parts of the alternative media operation that's clearly being run and funded by Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen, they just all come on his show and he has based and red-pilled talks with them. Wowzers. He had Thomas Massey on, and Thomas Massey talked about AIPAC. Whoa, red pill overload. Ho, ho, ho. Wow. Tucker Carlson makes me lose my mind. It's just so based and red pill. I can hardly handle it. Just being woken up so quickly. Oh, slow down. What are you, like some kind of alarm clock where the snooze button doesn't work? I just slap it all day and it doesn't work. Wow. Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are back with the New York Post. How does something like that happen? It's almost like they never left to begin with. Oh, man. Tucker Carlson, he got fired. Remember that? He got fired from Fox News. Everybody knows that. And then he went out to go be part of the independent media. The independent media, man, oh man, the alternative media, that's what we needed. The mainstream media was no more. That's what Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson will tell you. Hey, we're not like the mainstream media. Tucker Carlson, in the introduction to his show, talks about how he just never lies. We're going to give you the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me, Megyn. Okay, here we go. Fox Corp said Monday it has purchased Red Seat Ventures, the digital media company whose clients include former Fox News stars Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson, in a bid to tap younger audiences and the growing podcast market. Financial details of the deal were not disclosed. The deal represents an investment in a new area of media, the so-called creator economy, in which individual personalities such as Carlson, Kelly, Sean Ryan, and Candace Owens reach millions of subscribers via podcasts and streaming shows. You see that? Sean Ryan and Candace Owens. Now, I don't know if they're going to become part of Red Seat Media Ventures or whatever, or back onto Fox News. Who knows? That's not in this article. Maybe someday. Red Seat Ventures, named for the red seat in Boston's Fenway Park that marked the park's longest home run, who cares, provides a range of services for talent, from billing and payroll to production support. Its client list includes former New York Times journalist Bari Weiss. Wait a second. Bari Weiss, doesn't she have that outlet, The Free Press, that markets her as an independent alternative media voice? That's also funded by Mark Andreessen. one of the liberal tech bros, now totally pro-Trump and totally based and red-pilled on Twitter, always having chats with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, talking about how everything is changing. We're all getting back on the same page. Bring it all together. We're all rallying around Trump and J.D. Vance. These are our guys. Barry Weiss with Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, they've all been at the same company this whole time. Ha! Wow. Now they're all being bought by Fox. Wow. Now, does Donald Trump run Fox and he's bringing them all under his big wing? Is it all under total control? Hey, maybe. And I'm happy to analyze it from that perspective as well. But let's just be honest about what's happening here. So not only Barry Weiss, former Headline News host Nancy Grace, true crime podcaster Chris Hansen, television personality Dr. Phil, and former Fox News host Bill O'Reilly. So they were all out of Fox News. Now they're back in. Well, Barry Weiss was never at Fox News. Fine. And Phil, who knows where he was. But I think Headline News, well, maybe that was, I don't know. They're not all former Fox News personalities. That's the important part. Their exact status, irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Dr. Phil was part of the Trump op and the fake campaign. Bill O'Reilly was part of the Trump post-2020 media operation for a while. They did that live tour in, I think, the end of 2021, the beginning of 2022, although, check my facts if you like. The deal brings O'Reilly, Kelly, and Carlson back in the Murdoch fold, though Red Seat Ventures will operate independently within Fox's Tubi media group, which operates a free video streaming service. The former Fox talent will not be employed by Fox. So technically, they're not back at Fox. You get it? Tubi also broadcast the Super Bowl yesterday, and you could enjoy that broadcast if you simply signed in with Amazon. They're all coming back together, and they're all getting you to come back together. And once we're all back on the same page, isn't that great? Won't that be just the best in the future? So Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, back with Fox News, under the Fox umbrella, let's say, under the Murdoch umbrella. By the way, this is not the first such deal for Fox. In 2021, it acquired Outkick, a right-leaning sports and political commentary website and podcast founded by Clay Travis. And so that was a more sports-oriented thing. And Clay Travis and Buck Sexton are Fox News guys and took over the Rush Limbaugh show. So Red Seat Ventures is now under Fox News, and it's like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly never even left. And the truth is they didn't have to leave. They did the exact same job under different branding. And now that branding has accomplished its purpose, its task, it's convinced people who would otherwise be doubtful of the mainstream media that, don't worry, all your favorite TV characters aren't part of the mainstream media anymore. Who knows what's going to happen with the Daily Weimar? If the Daily Weimar and the Blaze get bought out by Fox News, then we'll have them all right back in the same organization. It'll be like they never left. And it'll be like people in the truth community didn't even bother tuning out from the mainstream news, no matter how many times they've talked about how they're tuned out from the mainstream news. And it's funny because yesterday they spent the afternoon trying to get everybody back on the same page when it comes to our mainstream pop culture. Why is that? Why is the truth community helping the regime get everyone back on the same page? Was yesterday a regime psyop or not? Okay. And the only way to say no is by suggesting that it was all under full control. And that view would then require you to take responsibility for every aspect of it, because people have gotten pretty granular on what they think is being controlled. And for instance, they think that the halftime show was fully controlled, the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. Now, Kendrick Lamar has done plenty of shows and performances, whether they're at the Grammys or the MTV Awards or whatever these award shows are. that people have called downright satanic and woke and the rest of it, but not yesterday. Why not yesterday? Well, because there was so much red, white, and blue in the podcast at large. Sorry, hold for processing just for a second here. There was so much red, white, and blue in the podcast, in the broadcast, that it could not possibly be anything but white hat control and an overt display of patriotism. Here is and this, you could call her nobody. It doesn't make any difference to me. She calls herself an NBA personality. She has 12,000 followers. Whether or not she's relevant in that world has no bearing on this. Okay. The only reason I bring this up is to make the point that if this is to wake up the normies, you can be guaranteed that not all the normies are getting the message. And you can also say this is the 4 to 6% who will never get the message. I would suggest to you that the 4 to 6% who will never get the message are the ones who think that the purpose of all of this is waking up the normies enough to shift them from Pepsi to Coca-Cola. And at the point where they have shifted toward Coca-Cola, they will be happy to let Republicans take office forever. This process is not about American politics. It's so crazy to think that all of this is about American politics. She said Kendrick making the American flag out of black men was absolutely beautiful. And the message was clear. Black people built America. And the same people that he was embracing are now calling the performance boring. If y'all don't look at this picture and see art, then I don't know what to tell y'all. Okay. So apparently the performance was boring. I don't care because I didn't watch it. But to some people, this is being taken as Kendrick Lamar making an American flag out of black men. Now, is that patriotic or woke? I suppose to some extent that's in the eye of the beholder, but it's also certainly in the eye of the people who put on this display. So were Kendrick Lamar's people and the choreographers and the set designers and the people for Fox News and for the NFL, or not for Fox News, but for Fox and Fox Sports and the NFL, who produced the entire broadcast and who produced a week of broadcasts, opening night of the Super Bowl. What could be dumber than opening night of the Super Bowl? And people go for that stuff. And then they're just like, yeah, you know how it was on opening night of the Super Bowl. Opening night of the Super Bowl? Was it their intent to make this patriotic or to appeal to people like Joy D'Angela and her racism? Hard to say. Maybe it was both. Maybe it was both because they figured that they can push their political messaging if they just use patriotic symbolism. And that's what Brad Pitt did as well. Brad Pitt was, the point of that commercial was to convince people that the NFL and the Super Bowl is just about the most patriotic thing there is in America. And that we all need to unify around that sort of patriotism in America. That is what we owe to our fellow Americans. Now, sure, the people asking us to unify and the people creating this marketing campaign that hits on every level throughout the broadcast, and I didn't even have to watch it to get that sense of it because I can see what people are saying about the broadcast online. So they figure, hey, you know what we can do? Now that there's this kind of cultural pushback to the overt wokeness and the gender delusions and derangement that we've been pushing, the science derangement, all of it. If we just package all of that in red, white, and blue and show them some military guys and some flags and talk about togetherness and what it means to be American, and then show off a bunch of psyops, show them that rocket thing again. Show them us winning wars we didn't win. Unbelievable. We can just get them all back on the same page. In fact, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make everything look patriotic. And then the people who actually hate the communist agenda that we've been pushing for all these years, they're actually going to take our messaging and amplify it to everyone else and say that it's a good thing and be like, you know what? Patriotism is back in America. Here it is right here. We have a rapper standing looking like he's very, very tough. And then an American flag made out of black men, according to Joy D'Angela. And then let's also have a look at this one. Here's another one from the same person. Same theme. Kendrick literally protested and taunted America in front of the president during America's biggest sports event, Chef's Kiss. So, is she right in her interpretation? I don't know. But I do know she's probably not alone. And if she's clearly on the other side, and she is, and she's clearly a normie, and she is, then she's the person that this psyop, taken in the good way, is meant to be waking up. Well, it doesn't sound like she's waking up. So this is Kendrick Lamar doing Kendrick Lamar songs, I guess. Maybe that was the moment when he called Drake a pedophile, except he didn't do that. Samuel L. Jackson dressed like Uncle Sam, calling himself Uncle Sam. And in a future history, could he be the picture of Uncle Sam? Why not? They're going to rearrange everything, aren't they? And here's Donald Trump looking very mad. And here's Ivanka, very mad, right? They're supposed to be very mad in Joy D'Angela's telling of this. And so, which way is it? Because certainly we would have to admit that suggesting white hats are in full control of the entire Super Bowl display and all the commercials and all the performances and all of it at every level, that's really giving them the benefit of the doubt, I would think. And I would also think that these people don't really deserve to be given the benefit of the doubt in any way whatsoever. And I hope that people recall how things were in 2020 when all of these celebrities were getting paid to launch social media ad campaigns featuring themselves in, quote unquote, their own voices, as though they were representing their own positions, promoting masks and social distancing and lockdowns and Mark Zuckerberg ballot drop boxes, promoting BLM, the black squares. They did all that and they made money to do it. They made American tax money to do that because there was money allotted in the COVID relief packages set aside so that states could fund public communications campaigns where the wealthiest, most privileged members of our society would communicate to the public, get paid to communicate to the public, and convince everybody that they need to get on this page. Everyone should be acting this way. You're going to wear a mask because it's good for other people. Maybe it doesn't work, but it's a courtesy and it's the least you can do. But it's not the least you can do. It's just about the worst you can do because it perpetuates the exact belief system that destroyed people's lives, their careers, forced them out of their homes. We had skyrocketing depression, anxiety, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, domestic abuse, and suicide in 2020 and beyond. Then the vaccine mandates, of course, and who knows what havoc was ultimately wreaked by the vaccines. It'll probably take years to unwind all that. And it was promoted the entire time by pop culture because we were all on that page. And we wanted to be on that page because everybody else was on that page. And when we're on a different page than everyone else is on, we have to deal with that tension and that division. We have to understand that people are going to say mean things to us, and our family's going to call us crazy, and our friends are going to call us stupid and irresponsible. And they're going to say that we're killing grandma. We don't want to feel that way again. What we want is to reunify with all these people. We used to like them. We used to get along with them. Why can't we do that again? Well, the reason we can't do that again is because they haven't actually changed their positions since that time. They've been wrong the whole time. It's been proven that they're wrong the whole time. And some of them, by the way, have totally admitted it and copped to it and owned it and come to the other side, making themselves redeemable communists. I did that, okay? From 2016 through halfway through 2020. It was a process. It took a matter of years. I realized, oh, my media sources, they're all lying to me. Maybe I'd better figure out what it is Republicans actually believe rather than listening to the New York Times describe to me what Republicans believe. So I did that. I started reading normie Republican outlets like the National Review, okay? I was reading Jonah Goldberg, trusting all the based and red-pilled senators. Oh, look how Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham are taking apart these witnesses in their Senate testimony. Oh, it's amazing. And then eventually in 2020, I realized, oh, Donald Trump's just telling us the truth and has been the whole time. So maybe I should listen to this guy and figure out what's actually going on rather than believing I can switch from one authoritative source to another brand of authoritative source and continue moving forward. So some people did admit it. Some people made themselves redeemable communists. But the rest, the people hooked into pop culture, have not changed. And many people on our side have not changed, imagining that they were simply mostly right the entire time and didn't really have to change. Okay? And when we have one of these events that is meant to get everybody back on the same page and everyone accepts it as such and then promotes the idea that we should all get back on the same page because everything's being sold to us in red, white, and blue packaging, I really have to begin to wonder about what people's intents are. Because that's not getting us where we need to go. That's not going to wake up the normies. The idea that the psyop should continue forever because it's the good guys controlling it. Well, when does that end? When do the good guys admit, yeah, it's a psyop, and everyone actually needs to go take responsibility for their own communities, their own personal lives, their own beliefs? I do not know. I do not know. Let's see. Where should we move? Let's move right here, right now. We're told that this, I guess, is part of the based and red-pilled Super Bowl broadcast. Citizen Free Press posted this yesterday. Travis Kelce arrives to the Super Bowl wearing a 1970s outfit. And I said, this is so gay. American men are now excited for a fashion show featuring the guy who serves as Taylor Swift's paid male escort. And that is exactly what Travis Kelce is. Despite being a very talented football player, he is Taylor Swift's, I guess you'd call it a beard if Taylor Swift was a gay man. But instead, he's just her longtime male escort. And we're told that they have a real natural relationship.
Travis Kelce. How about that fit, Jules? You like that look?
Hey, you can't hide swag. Look at old Kelce.
Only swag. Travis Kelce can pull that off. And then, Mike, you'll like the next guy coming up.
They're running a men's fashion show that men are watching, believing that it's manly because these are football players. Is that the woke agenda being pushed, or is that white hats in control? I mean, maybe I'm just totally wrong. It's just white hats all the way down. But I don't think so. Anna Marie writes in the chat, just said, I love your post about his suit, Chris, Spirit Halloween. Yeah, he kind of looks like he got the disco outfit from Spirit Halloween. I know these are high fashion designer, well-made clothes and all. It's a joke. But that is a fashion show that American men are watching, thinking that they are being manly while watching it. That, my friends, is lunacy. I don't know how you get there. And again, the entire time that I'm watching all of this content being pushed out, I'm thinking, oh, we are being sung a lullaby by the NFL and by Fox News and by our fellow truthers somehow, attempting to put us back to sleep. And what could be more valuable in society than getting everyone back on the same page so everyone goes back to sleep? That is the one and only priority of the regime and its public communications for these next few years. They want people who will actively oppose Trump and MAGA to be fully activated, and everyone who might side with Trump and MAGA to be put back to sleep. And that is exactly what all these public communications are designed to do. People seem really happy with all the things that Trump is doing. Now, Trump is preempting many of the things that the uniparty right is attempting to communicate to the public that it is doing through the fantasy team, through JD Vance and the rest of it. All of these priorities that were going to be accomplished because the script called for them being accomplished. You got the Great Reset on one side, and you got Trump and MAGA trying to hijack that and redirect it on the other side. And so you have to understand, and this is part of the good twin, evil twin dynamic, right? It's very hard to tell the difference between the two because for a time they're the same thing, and eventually they split off and go in different directions. And at every one of those split points, we need to be sure that the train heads in our direction. The regime's focus is to get everyone back on the same page, sometimes through these intentionally inflicted mass trauma events, the terrorism, the plane crashes, the natural disasters, the fires, all the rest of it, get everybody back on the same page. We've talked about this at length over the last few months, particularly with the LA fires and whatnot. There are a certain number of issues that you have to be too sensitive about. And even truthers will say, oh, you can't tell the truth about that. And we'll maybe get to one of those issues later if we have time. The assassination event #1 and the new claims that Josh Shapiro, the illegitimate Pennsylvania governor, is responsible for assassination event #1. Not even Dan Bongino, who pushed assassination event #1 in the official story of that harder than anyone. Not even he will touch this thing. Jack Posobiec not touching it either. And as I said, maybe we'll get to that later. But that's an event that everybody has to get back on the same page about. Everyone has to go with the official story, despite the fact that the official story is virtually fact-free. Thomas Matthew Crooks, really? No social media history. His parents seem to barely know the guy. We have some grainy video. We're told that's got to be the guy. Oh, that's got to be the guy. It was this 20-year-old who just hopped up on a roof. And then Donald Trump wears a little square on his ear for 2 days. Ridiculous. But we all have to be on the same page about all of it. The point here is that no one should be helping their fellow Americans get back on the same page with the regime. We do not need to unify with those people. They need to unify with and around the proper principles. We've been talking about this for years. Trump plants a flag. MAGA rallies around that flag. Other people, realizing that they're getting constantly hoodwinked and taken advantage of by the regime, eventually realize, oh, hey, maybe those crazy people that we said all those terrible things about, maybe they've been right the whole time. That's the exact experience I had. I'm guessing that's an experience many of you have had. And then they come and they rally around the same flag without Trump moving at all, without MAGA moving at all. No compromise. No compromise whatsoever. Just more people coming to that flag and rallying around that flag until everybody, except maybe 4 to 6%, are rallying around that flag, or at least maybe 20 or 30% have given up fighting. All right. And they're just neutral. There's some number of people who are going to go along to get along no matter what. Right. That's what we're told. There are some people that are unreachable completely. There are some people who are just too checked out. Now, I don't believe that. Okay. And I don't think those of us who are Christians are taught that. Right. There is this truth. Everyone's capable of awakening to this truth. It should be everyone's mission to bring people to this truth. Okay. Now, we don't have to make it out like the truth about Trump and MAGA or American politics or any of that is on the same level. It's not. I'm just comparing the processes here. There's no compromising with evil. All right. You don't say, okay, well, I know that you guys are evil and you're going to do a little evil. And the thing is, what we need to do is we need to accomplish these XYZ worldly tasks. And to do that, we're going to compromise with evil. Right. You don't compromise with evil. You stay where you are and you win. And the same thing has to be true of our politics. We don't compromise with these people just for the sake of some unity. Okay. Especially not while they're moving in our direction. It is never wise to get everyone back on the same page. The trend is toward decentralization for everyone and everything. Our businesses are decentralizing rather than the monopolistic transnational control. Okay. Global governing bodies being done away with, being ignored, being stepped away from, so that sovereign countries will be governed by sovereign nationalist leaders where the people have a say in the governance, and the governments are operating for the good of those people, every government, every nation doing that for itself. A decentralization happening. Media is decentralizing. Everything is decentralizing. And then we have a massive psyop singing a lullaby to the entire country at once. And we have people on our side being like, hey, everybody, just for today, let's all just get back together. Come on, come on, come on. No, the answer is no. And I'm sorry. Some of my friends disagree with me. All good. They're still my friends. I like them. There's nothing about what they're saying that's going to convince me of that position, because they're not actually arguing a position. They're just saying this is how it is because Q, because Trump, because unity, whatever. All right. And I appreciate that Q has been a way that a lot of people have come to the truth movement. I wrote 25,000 words about it. All right. I'm not anti-Q in any way. It's just not a list of answers that go on forever and say that because there's flags being presented to us by the entertainment industry and the woke NFL, that all of a sudden this production has been taken over by white hats and it's all good for all of us. Did that production wake up normies? I highly doubt it. I've seen no proof of that so far. And maybe you have. And if you have, then by all means, send it my way. Take a little break here and just check the chat because I know I've missed a couple of rants. $5 doc from Amish PA. Apparently Brad Pitt's message worked. The NFL must have solved racism. They removed their messages from the end zone. And that's funny, actually, because I hear, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear that the end racism message, which has been on the end line, the line behind the end zone, for the last 5 years or whatever, end racism was replaced by end hate. Well, end hate is a different woke campaign based on stopping anti-Semitism, led by NFL owner Robert Kraft, after Robert Kraft had a takedown op run against him with Asian massage parlors. They said that Robert Kraft was responsible for the trafficking of humans because he visited an Asian massage parlor. I mean, it's kind of a take that you have to go all the way around the bend to land, but people are happy to go all the way around the bend because they want someone to attack. Regardless, takedown attempt against Robert Kraft. Now Robert Kraft is the lead of the Stop Jewish Hate initiative. Let me pull that up, actually, just so that I can convince people that I'm not actually crazy here. I mean, I guess it would be weird if you were watching my show and also thought that I was crazy. Or maybe people just watch that for entertainment. I don't know. I don't know what people do these days. Here is an article from this morning. This is the very prestigious outlet USA Today. Snoop Dogg's Super Bowl commercial against hate earns backlash after Trump performance. Now, I don't know what performance Donald Trump gave, but Snoop has a commercial with Tom Brady called No Reason to Hate, a foundation aimed at combating anti-Semitism. The foundation is backed by Robert Kraft, the billionaire owner of the New England Patriots. Okay. And Donald Trump, anti-Semitic, homophobic, racist, and xenophobic statements. And people got upset at Snoop's anti-hate commercial because Snoop performed at Donald Trump's inauguration. So I guess they're talking about that Snoop performance, not Donald Trump's performance. Oh, wow. Wow, this is Robert Kraft. He said, I don't recognize parts of this nation. I don't like where we're headed. I'm worried about our country right now. In Germany, it all started with the Jews, Kraft said. Then the Nazis went after everyone. What I would say to some Americans is, you're next. Jews, blacks, Asians, the LGBTQ plus community. It won't stop with the Jews. You're next unless we all stand together. Why am I doing this Super Bowl ad? Kraft continued. The majority of people in America who are good people, I think they believe there's nothing they can do, but there is. What we need is non-Jewish people to stand up to this hate. Yes, what we need is non-Jewish people to talk more about anti-Semitism and to repeat the central narrative and official story around World War II and the Zionists and the Nazis. You see, the Nazis, they hated the Jews, even though they were business partners with the Zionists. People don't like when you say that because there's a pro-Nazi op and a pro-Hitler op. It's been very effective. That is the controlled opposition from the official story. They understand that people have realized the official story may not have been entirely true. So they'll give you the other side of the official story that supports the underlying truth of the official story. But rather than the bad guys being bad, the bad guys are good. You see, because in the false story that they've told you, the good guys, they're really bad. So if you just you just swap them, switch and swap. I said those two together. You give them the old switcheroo. Well, now the Nazis are the good guys, except the Zionists and the Nazis formed a business partnership so that the Nazis could ship the Jews down to Palestine and create the regime's proxy state of Israel. That's what Havara did, the transfer agreement in 1933 that started immediately after Hitler was put into office. Those negotiations began immediately after Hitler was put into office, after the person before him had been removed. It's almost like he was put into that office to make that deal to ship the Jews down to Palestine and set up the regime proxy state of Israel. Isn't that weird that the Nazis played such a crucial role in setting up the state of Israel? And that all these weird Israeli paramilitary groups just kept existing, doing like almost the same thing that the Nazis were doing. And then the Muslim Brotherhood, they just arose from nowhere. It's crazy. So what we need to do is make sure everyone reaccepts the official story about World War II on behalf of an NFL owner who's promoting this after having been the target of a massive media takedown, showing grainy video of Robert Kraft visiting an Asian massage parlor. So, end racism removed from the end zone. And again, that's how you know that patriotism is on the rise, because for the Super Bowl, the NFL removed end racism. Did they remove it during the season? No. Oh, choose love is what they put there. Oh, wait. So here's what teams have used on the field this year: vote, end racism, stop hate, and choose love. Now, not all of those phrases are objectionable in the abstract, okay? Sure. Choose love. Yes. We're all nice people. Vote. Well, is the election real? Because if so, then maybe voting is the right move, but they're not real. So in that case, is voting the right move, or is voting just a massive psyop to get everybody back on the same page, agreeing that this is how we give political power, give our power over to these people to represent us? This is what makes it legitimate. The fact that we all vote. Is that how it works? No, it's not. Should we care? Yes. Do we? No. End racism, stop hate, choose love, and vote. This is all part of the NFL's Inspire Change initiative. Isn't that so great? The NFL, this massive global communist corporation, is telling us that we're going to choose love, stop hate, end racism, and vote. And they're going to inspire us. They're going to inspire change. End racism is no longer on the end line during NFL games. Therefore, problem solved. It's incredible. And by the way, this just came out. So you got to know that everything proves everything else, which means that we are definitely winning, and winning so hard that even the things that look like they are obviously info ops being run by communists to hoodwink us are actually just to wake up the normies again. Here's Harry Enton, the polling expert on CNN, and this lady who's, I guess, whatever.
You know, I think one of the things that's so important for politicians is for folks to believe what they're saying and that they're keeping their campaign promises. So I think this gives you a pretty gosh darn good idea of what.
Wait a second. What's important is that folks believe politicians. Oh, man. Let's hear that one more time.
You know, I think one of the things that's so important for politicians is for folks to believe what they're saying and that they're keeping their campaign promises. So I think this gives you a pretty gosh darn good idea of what may be going on. Trump's doing what he promised to do. You go back to April of 2017, it was just 46% of all Americans who said that Trump was doing what he promised to do. Compare that now to February of 2025. You know, there was a good show that was on during the 1990s called A Different World. That is what's going on right now. We're living in a different world. 70% of Americans say Trump is doing what he promised to do. Again, compare that to April of 2017 when it's just 46%. When Americans are 24 points more likely to say that you're doing what you promised to do, it's no wonder that your net approval rating is much more likely to be on the positive side of the ledger than on the negative side. And so far, what we're seeing, again, is Americans, 21 days so far versus just 11 days during his entire first term, that Trump has a positive net approval rating.
Are polls real? No, polls are not real. Elections aren't real. Polls aren't real. Polls didn't become real because they're nice to Donald Trump now. Elections did not become real because Donald Trump won. The NFL's referees did not become perfectly honest and doing their best all the time just because the NFL said so and the Eagles won. That's not how any of this works. But we pretend it is because it makes us feel good. And it gives everybody a reason to go back to sleep. It's a perfect little lullaby playing. Hey, listen to this, Trump supporters. Everybody likes you now. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice to see red, white, and blue instead of some random Baphomet on stage with the rapper or the twerker or the old lady in her negligee? What did they put Dolly Parton in a few years ago? I don't know. Something that was probably not appropriate for an 82-year-old who has spent a great deal of time as, I don't know, being rebuilt in the shop, apparently. No offense to Dolly Parton or anything. I mean, I know that she's like a legend or something, whatever. Okay, so let's go to this commercial. We talked about Josh Shapiro a little bit. I don't think we might get back into him today at some point. But for now, let's assume the official story of Assassination Event 1 and assassination event 2. And let's remember that for assassination event 2, there's zero evidence whatsoever. There's only a story. Only a story. And a patsy. And a story about the patsy. And some pictures of the patsy. And that's it. Just a story, assassination event number 2. Now, by the way, I assume that there were probably tens, maybe even 100, maybe more. I don't know. Assassination attempts against Donald Trump. I am sure that there were assassination plots against Donald Trump going back to probably the 2015 campaign. Okay. I have no doubt about that. That's definitely, I think it's likely. Let's say that. Okay. Likely, probable. I would bet that there were assassination attempts or plots against Donald Trump. That doesn't mean I believe the story about Ryan Routh at the golf course. Okay. It doesn't mean that I believe the official story about assassination event number 1 either. I don't. It's a ridiculous story. They're both ridiculous stories. Okay. Here is the Secret Service advertising themselves during the NFL game. And I guess we can cheer for this too. The Secret Service says, if you weren't able to attend tonight's big game, you missed a Jumbotron highlight. For 160 years, our agency has been a witness to history. And since 1901, we've protected the most important people and events, including Super Bowl licks. secretservice.gov/careers. They want people to sign up to be Secret Service agents. Now, the Secret Service's original purpose, I believe, was to pursue the counterfeiting of currency. 160 years, by the way, takes them back to 1865. Aha, the Reconstruction again. In fact, let's, you know what? I'll look for that while we're watching this commercial. Here we go.
America was founded on an idea.
Oh my God, a dirt boat.
Idea of freedom.
Is that Abe Lincoln? Is that the weird statue from France that convinces us it's wonderful to be the destination of the global slave trade forever? How about that?
America's always stepped forward in time of need throughout our short but powerful history.
Ask not what your country.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Look at that. A space shuttle and a moon landing. Right here, you've got some guy in a suit jumping around like he's in zero gravity. Here is a flag that we planted in the moon. This here is a go-kart that got up there somehow, I guess attached to this bucket of bolts. This thing made out of shower rods and aluminum foil. That thing just hurtling through outer space, the black infinite void, landing carefully on the surface of the moon. And then eventually we lost the technology and couldn't get back there at all. But let's continue. This is so that you want a job with the Secret Service.
Can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Ah, yeah, they shot that guy. They shot at that guy too.
There for all of it.
Oh, hey, remember when we stopped communism, except we didn't actually stop communism? And remember the fact that our government, our uniparty government, is part of the global regime, which is the global communist regime, because a borderless society where everyone has equality, except for the people who are better, of course. That's basically just communism, right? And they own all the corporations and all the companies, right? They have the non-governmental organizations that they still pay. Everybody's realizing that now. Today, that was part of the new Elon Musk exposure op. We're actually paying these non-governmental organizations to do things that the government's not allowed to do, even though they're acting as part of the government. That's not communism. And the corporations that work with the international governing bodies and empower governments and fund government initiatives and the philanthropists and all that total control, totalitarian control over everything. It's not communism. It's not communism. It's not global communism. Let's keep going. I mean, this is such a great montage of psyops that we're supposed to cheer for and then want to work for the U.S. Secret Service. They're just showing all the presidents that who have had attempted assassinations happen to them under the Secret Service's watch. And hey, man, I'm sure that there's some good people at the Secret Service, but give me a break here. That didn't look like a cyber. Oh,
second plane hit the tower.
How about that? 9/11, and then the Secret Service guy, he's right there in George Bush's ear. We get a reenactment of that moment where Bush was reading My Pet Goat, and the guy says that a second plane has hit the tower. Wow.
Our heroes are humble. They have an inner pride to keep this idea alive. Protectors are born, they're not made. America's Secret Service protecting this Super Bowl is asking a few more to step forward.
All righty then. So are you ready to sign up and join the Secret Service? Somebody in the chat says, that sounds like the Badlands merch guy, Yorko7. I am 100% on board with you, actually. I think that sounds exactly like the Badlands Rise Attire merch commercial. That's a great call. I was trying to figure out where that voice came from, and that's it. I wonder if that is just an AI voice that you can feed a script into and have it make you a commercial. Possible. Pretty incredible. Let's take a quick peek. And I asked the machine, how was the Secret Service started and what were they meant to protect? The United States Secret Service was founded on July 5th, 1865 as a division of the Department of Treasury. Its original mission was to combat rampant counterfeiting, which threatened the financial stability of the post-Civil War U.S. economy. And you can imagine that, because somebody wanted to use different money. They wanted a different country. At the time, an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of all U.S. currency in circulation was counterfeit, making the agency's work critical for restoring trust in the monetary system. Did that mean that the states of the Confederacy were using their own currency? Let's continue. The Secret Service's role expanded significantly in 1901 following the assassination of President William McKinley. And Donald Trump just renamed Mount McKinley after William McKinley, a man known for his tariffs, according to Donald Trump. This event highlighted the need for dedicated presidential protection, and by 1902, the agency formally took on this responsibility. Over time, its protective duties grew to include other high-ranking officials, former presidents, visiting foreign dignitaries, and major national events. And we were told, of course, that the inauguration, the certification on January 6th was going to be protected as though it was the Super Bowl. And here's the answer to that question that I asked. Yes, the Confederacy were indeed using their own currency during the American Civil War. The Confederate States of America issued its own money, known as the Confederate dollar or grayback, which was legal tender for the 11 states that made up the Confederacy. Isn't that incredible? So after the Confederacy's defeat, it lost all value, leaving individuals and banks with substantial losses. So the Secret Service was stood up to make sure that everyone used the union's currency. Let's just see what the machine says about that. It says, no, that's not what it was. It was to combat counterfeiting of U.S. currency, prevalent after the Civil War. And got to say, find that a little doubtful. I'm not going to press on it now. So that is the Secret Service and their purpose. And once again, we are supposed to feel that all of that was very based and red-pilled and very patriotic. And we are supposed to rush to get back in the pen. We're going to corral ourselves back into the pen, get everybody back on the same page, and then march forward in that direction. Let's pause for just a second. I'm going to just take a second and read one of these Rumble ads. As many of you heard last week, I'm experimenting with this Rumble setup here. And so please bear with me as we go through this experiment. Let's try. This one talks about nukes, so I feel like this is the perfect one. See how this goes. I want to talk about the things that people are afraid to say out loud. Who is in control of America's nukes? It's not Biden. Well, how could it be Biden? Meanwhile, we have Russian ships off the coast of Florida based and full-blown wars in Ukraine and Israel, sort of. The world is at its most unstable point since World War II. And with nuclear weapons, the stakes are 10 times higher. How do people like you and I stay safe? Well, we understand that nukes aren't real. Every prepper needs to have RadioGuard ACE, the only FDA-approved drug to treat radioactive fallout. Now, is it possible that you might need to treat radioactive fallout even without a nuclear weapons attack? Hey, maybe. That's why Rumble partnered with 5G Free, the only company in the world that has a supply of RadioGuard ACE and the ability to prescribe it to prescribe it prophylactically. What in the world? They do like a phonetic spelling. Prophylactically. Get their radiation emergency kit with RadioGuard ACE, potassium iodide, Zofran, and a Geiger counter. There's simply no other tool in your arsenal to protect against a radioactive threat. Go to 5gfree.com, code STUDIO to save 15% and get your radiation kit now. And you can see that little, what do they call those little QR codes over there on the side of your screen? Crushed it. Man, that was kind of fun. By the way, what are they trying to say about 5G? Is there radioactive interference just coming through in the sky? I hope that didn't happen to us in 2020 while they were rolling out all that technology. Maybe that's something that you need to be protected from, by the way. It sounded like I was making fun of that commercial. I'm making fun of the idea of nukes. The product might be something that helps if there's some radiation sickness going on in the society. And I don't suggest that there can't be that. I don't know. Let's move forward. Okay, so let's get to this part because this I find actually really interesting. And here is some signal amidst all the noise. Now, I said earlier, everybody participated in the projection of this mass cultural lullaby that we are all consuming, partly because of Elon Musk, the idea that Elon was going to be putting up all of these commercials. And this, I think, is where that all stems from. According to various posts on X and web information, there are rumors that Elon Musk is planning to run Super Bowl ads. Specifically, it's reported that he might be spending $40 million on 5 commercials aimed at exposing government waste identified by the Department of Government Efficiency. However, neither Musk nor his representatives have officially confirmed these plans yet. And again, people watched yesterday to see Elon Musk's 5 Doge commercials, and they kept saying, I've watched this whole game for this. And they all got the rug pulled because none of those commercials were actually played. There were no Elon Musk Doge commercials. So the people who are telling us that the Super Bowl was patriotic and that it's okay for everybody to get back on board with it. In fact, Trump wants us to get back on board with it. It's all okay because we're going to see these amazing Elon Musk commercials that just so happened to never materialize. Is that unfortunate? Hey, you're not allowed to say that, or else you are a doomer or a black pillar or something of the sort. You have to agree that the Super Bowl broadcast yesterday was an undisputed victory for the White Hats because there was red, white, and blue and talk of American success stories revolving around spaceships. Here is some more spaceship stuff, courtesy of Elon Musk, Starlink, and T-Mobile. And as I said, this is some actual signal amidst the noise.
There are over 500,000 square miles of the U.S. unreachable by any cell phone tower. Places where emergency texts never send, where emotional messages are not received, and countless memories are left unshared.
Doing good. You're doing good.
But T-Mobile is about to change that. T-Mobile partnered with Starlink to launch hundreds of satellites, creating the only space-based network that automatically connects to the phone you already have. And because connection means everything, we're inviting anyone on any wireless carrier to experience it for free.
You won't believe where I am right now.
T-Mobile Starlink. If you can see the sky, you're connected.
Cool, right? So I have been an iPhone person for, 15 years. My last iPhone, I switched my network because I wanted the possibility of Starlink connectivity. And that was 2.5 years ago, but here it is now. It's really happening. And as soon as they release this beta test, everybody, not just T-Mobile users, is going to be able to connect to Starlink for free until July. And then they can pay an additional $15 on T-Mobile or $20 on these other networks to connect to Starlink, which means that if the old information infrastructure goes down or is taken down, well, you're going to be able to connect via Starlink. And if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're in a rural community without cell phone towers, or maybe there's only one cell phone carrier. I grew up in a small town. I know what it's like to not have reception, to not have any options on carriers or anything like that, to not have broadband accessible. This is a great solution. I've used Starlink before to solve that problem. It has worked wonderfully well. And so I'm a supporter of Starlink and generally a supporter of Elon Musk. This is potentially the introduction to America of the parallel information and communications infrastructure. And that is moving toward the decentralized peer-to-peer information infrastructure. Okay, this is something that we've talked about at extensive length with General Quast at our various GART events. This is something I have had interactions with him many times about. Nearly every GART we discussed directly some portion of this parallel information infrastructure as kind of I see it evolving, taking shape, and then I'll get his feedback and continue thinking and get his feedback and continue thinking. And this is now played out over the course of a couple of years. A lot of people who talk about potential for comms blackouts, everything going down. This is the alternative. Okay. The alternative information infrastructure. Now on Devolution Power Hour over the weekend, we talked a bit about what is claimed to be this intrusion into the United States Treasury computer systems, giving Elon Musk and his little team of Doge teenagers the opportunity to see everybody's personal Treasury information. He's going to violate the personal information of Americans. And then we had the court decision that says, no, you can't do that. And now we're going to go back and forth on whether or not the court's able to make that sort of claim and whether it's binding on Trump and Elon and Treasury, et cetera. Part of the concern I believe, and I said on Saturday, was that as this parallel communications infrastructure, data infrastructure, whatever, is being built up and emerging into our reality, and people are being able to finally access it and use it for the first time. It has always been, theoretically, I don't know that this is happening. I can't tell you I know this is happening. This is projection over the course of years that we've been discussing this. At some point, there would have to be a switch of some of these critical systems from the old infrastructure to the new infrastructure. And that's particularly true if we understand that our government for the last 160 years has been usurped and inverted in stages. Maybe for the entire 250, it has been to some degree, but certainly since the Reconstruction, and we've gone through this many times, our secret constitution, written by George P. Fletcher, Columbia Law School professor, global communist, regime communist, makes the argument that the Civil War was fought specifically to invert and overthrow the Constitution, changing us from a republic into a democracy, the focus from the good of the individual to the good of the state, and a focus from personal liberty to collective equality among people, okay? A total reversal of the founders' intent. And the Reconstruction Amendments, forced through, not actually ratified, but forced through at the tip of a bayonet, have been the quote-unquote law of the land for the last 160 years, and our legal system has essentially been built on that foundation, which is a false layer of our government, okay? So if the entire infrastructure of American government was built in that system, it's possible that it is too intricately wound up in that system. And what we would need was to take all of that temporarily offline, move it on to a new system. So I would think that we are seeing hints, at least right now, of that process taking shape. Okay? If we are going from a centralized internet and communications flow with top-down control, which is what we witnessed through 2020, not only the censorship, but the ability to take entire platforms offline through Amazon Web Services or whatever else. Now we're seeing all the ops about how the Chinese are cutting undersea cables. That seems like total nonsense to me, but believe whatever you like. At some point, the parallel infrastructure would have to be stood up. Now, a lot of people also remember back at the very end of the Trump term, all of these, I think it was IP addresses, switched over to DoD control. I can't remember the exact story. I always misstate it, and then John corrects me on DPH. But it seems like maybe that's what's going on. Now, there has been some degree of freak out over all of this over the last few days. And I would suggest to you that we can hear them discussing this when they're talking about people's data being compromised, as though all of this is some breach, okay? They are concerned that the duly elected president, with this massive mandate recognized by virtually everyone, has too much control in the executive branch and its agencies, okay? The agencies in the executive branch are their administrative state. That's the bureaucratic deep state. That's what they want to protect. And they believe, or believed, that they would be able to protect that from Donald Trump, and that they could convince the American people that Donald Trump was as dangerous as they were able to convince the American people he was in that first term. And so the American people would then get on the same page with them, understanding that they need to join this resistance. Donald Trump and Elon Musk, these billionaires, these authoritarians, these autocrats, are trying to access everybody's data. They're actually compromising everything that the government has been doing to protect us. For all this time, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are going to go in there and blow it up. They don't care about anything other than their own interests. That's what we're being told. So we need to all rise up and stop them. We need to unify around these basic American values that we have to preserve the government at all costs. So we need to rise up and resist. Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We need to make sure that they never get the kind of control that would be required to switch us from this old system to the new system. Here is Friar Cuck himself, Jamie Raskin.
What I'm thinking about and talking to, my friends at Democracy Defenders and other lawyers about is, could there be a nationwide class action lawsuit to follow up on last week's victories against Musk, against the Trump administration for this breach in computer security and the data of all American taxpayers? It could be a class action suit on behalf of all Americans. If the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers want to opt out and they don't want their part of the money for the contamination of their data, really, it's a suit on behalf of everybody, because that's our information. It doesn't belong to Elon Musk or his little midnight crew. It belongs to the people, and the government has to hold it in trust. Now, there's specific statutes which say that information can only be accessed for tax purposes, for the purposes of the internal revenue system, and for no other purposes. What are they using that information for?
What indeed? It's all very scary. And you just say Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and that's a good laugh line, right? You don't want the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers having all your secret data, and Donald Trump, well, he's just going to take it and he's going to give it to them. And apparently the viewers of MSNBC or CNN, or that was MSNBC, apparently they go for that. And so does, by the way, former RNC chair Michael Steele, who is just part of the MSNBC roster right now. Jamie Raskin is making all this out like he is protecting the data of Americans. That's what we are hearing. These people should not be allowed to access these systems. Now, Elon Musk stated in no uncertain terms that they are not accessing anyone's data. He said that to Congressman Dan Goldman, and called him a moron after Goldman made the claim that somehow they had access to people's personal data, and they don't. And we're hearing about this at all of the various agencies. A lot of people were concerned about this court decision affecting the ability of Scott Bessent or Elon Musk or anyone else to access Treasury systems. I'm not all that worried about that, to be honest. This week, apparently, we're getting FEMA and the Pentagon. I guess we'll see about that. And then the cycle will come back to Treasury, and it'll come back to USAID, and all this stuff will get rerun over and over again until the people understand it. And that's fine. Okay. Because these are all valuable points of exposure and disclosure. And maybe I'm taking this too far. Okay. Just information among other information. Think about it for yourself. If it tracks, cool. If information arises in reality that makes it so it no longer tracks, cool. Then you dismiss it at that point. All right. But I think that there's something else going on here when they're talking about these breaches of data and potential compromise of this data. If there is a parallel information infrastructure that eliminates the possibility for regime control, and it actually eliminates the possibility for anyone's control because it is fully decentralized and can't be fully controlled at any of those nodes in the decentralized network, well, then we're in an entirely different ballgame in our information environment. I think that is where we're headed. Let me just take another pause here to get to some Rumble rants that I happened to miss. I think I missed this one. John in Connecticut, $10. Your point about putting everybody back to sleep is not only 100% on the mark, it's far more profound and dangerous than it sounds on the surface. Love your shows. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, John in Connecticut. And I wouldn't be bringing it up if I didn't see it as a potential danger. Okay. It's always, everybody's like, nothing can stop what is coming, which I believe. Okay. There's a lot of this stuff set in stone. If there are any threats that exist, I mean, is it just nothing can stop what's coming forever? Forever? Maybe if you're taking it all the way up to like, this is all God's will and it's going to play out on God's terms, however it plays out, all good. but that's not how people generally mean it. All right. If it is possible for everybody to get back on the same page with the regime and be corralled back into that pen over some amount of time, this would be the way that it would happen. Okay. They would get everybody back on the same page through a series of events that convince us that reuniting with the people that maybe got left behind or that we departed from, getting back on the same page with them would be the first step. Just corral everybody back into the pen. It is through this information operation and failing to recognize it, failing to discern properly, that we get back there. It is absolutely possible to analyze everything in a way that reaches the conclusion that it's just under white hat control. Figure out a way to explain this thing as a factor of white hat control. You can do that. I can do that. Everybody can do that. It doesn't mean that it's accurate analysis just because we can find a way through it. Okay. Which is why we pursue multiple avenues, understanding that possibility, understanding that the possibility that is wrong and that something else is going on, and that the entertainers in Hollywood and the woke NFL, by the way, woke NFL charities work with like the Clinton Foundation and Chelsea Clinton and all these woke transnational corporations. The NFL is not immune to that just because it seems a little manlier. It's crazy. It's entirely possible that the op is intended to do bad things. And the more we participate in the op and encourage others to do so, the more likely it is that those bad things happen. But we're not allowed to say that. Another Rumble rant, real purdy one, $20. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Snowcat operator with a gift subscription. John Henry Bonzo, $5. When a government becomes tyrannical and abuses its power, the people have both the right and the moral obligation to overthrow it and establish a new one to protect their future security. Thanks, Chris. And of course, he is paraphrasing Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence. It actually is our duty, our right, and our duty to throw off that government. And our founders believed in exactly that. They did not believe that we all need to applaud a television show because it has red, white, and blue in it. And because one rapper is making fun of another rapper. That rapper's the bad one. Lady Gaga's good now, but Drake is bad. What? Like, what? It would be better. And again, entertain yourself however you like. Okay? However you like. Burning Bright and I have a show about Hollywood movies, right? And we list a movie every week. We watch that movie. Other people watch that movie. And then we talk about what that movie is trying to accomplish and what it means and how it can be viewed now, knowing what we know, right? Some of those movies are just through and through commie propaganda. And we talk about it, which means we look at it, we analyze it, all right? Are the movies entertaining at the same time? Yes, they are. Okay. So it's entirely acceptable. And by the way, no one has to impress me or conform to my standards, but I believe it's entirely acceptable to engage with entertainment as long as we're understanding what that entertainment is. So we're just trying to understand the entertainment. If you want to be entertained by the NFL, if you're an old school Chiefs fan or an old school Eagles fan, or you just want to watch some football and pretend it's old times, more power to you. Okay. I don't care how people want to spend their free time. But we don't need to pretend that it's noble or that the people entertaining us are trying to do something noble. We don't have to make excuses for wanting to watch TV or wanting to listen to a song we like. Who knows what Michael Jackson's status is? Some people think he's a pedophile. Other people think he's a white hat and Donald Trump's best friend. I don't know the answer to that. All right. But if I listen to Beat It and I like dance, I'm like, beat it, beat it. That doesn't mean I'm going to hell. At least I don't think so. Really not up to me. But like the point is, it's okay to be entertained by entertaining things. We don't have to shut off our humanity and our enjoyment of things. Okay. Sometimes it's okay to eat food that's bad for you. But you don't go around telling everybody that chocolate cake is healthy based on who made it. And also the people making it are still the evil ones. It's like, I mean, I lived in Hollywood for almost 20 years. I was intimately involved in the Hollywood scene at a very high level, right? I ran top level nightclubs in Hollywood for over 15 years with other people who still run top level nightclubs in Hollywood. It's not like the business has changed. I'm just not in it anymore. And it's possible that Kendrick Lamar is the most based and red pill guy ever. But why would anyone believe that? It's certainly not something that you would glean from his past performances. It's not something you would glean from his performance yesterday. And the idea that all of the people around him involved in putting that halftime show together are based and red pilled and American patriots is preposterous. Okay? So we don't need to play pretend about all this. We can just say that we enjoy the Super Bowl as a guilty pleasure. I watched NFL games this year, all right? I'm not saying I'm above it or I'm above these other people, but let's be honest about what we're seeing on television. It's the television in their single biggest op of the year, all right? It's bigger than the Grammys, bigger than the Oscars or the Golden Globes or whatever it is. The only thing bigger than the Super Bowl that they could possibly do would be a mass trauma event. I cannot imagine a bigger televised psyop than the Super Bowl. Election night? Was election night bigger than the Super Bowl? I doubt it. We do not need to be talked into participating in psyops. And if we want to be entertained by the television or by a video game or a movie or a song or a book or whatever, let's just be entertained. We don't have to then suggest that the way we are entertained is noble because we're not going to be perfect the whole time, okay? We don't have to be perfect the whole time. We have to be conscious the whole time of what we're doing. Let me take one more pause here and see what's up with Rumble Premium. And by the way, I think I got Rumble Premium, and Snowcat Operator I saw gave a subscription away before. I believe that that's to my channel on Rumble, but it is my understanding that you are able to eliminate the ads with that. And so Rumble Premium actually does eliminate the ads, which for me, who, you know, I watch a lot of Rumble rather than watching YouTube when I can. And by the way, apparently Trump just got a Rumble channel. So cool. But let me put one of these up again. This sponsorship is from Rumble, one that is incredibly important to the survival of the company. And actually, I do want to see Rumble survive. And I think Donald Trump does as well, because his app Truth Social is on the Rumble cloud. And the CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovsky, has been supportive of our project at Badlands. So I'm thankful and I'm glad that I'm able to support them. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden-Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. And all of us in the kind of more free speech oriented space have experienced that. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it. Watching this show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, Now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we are just happy. And I think we as Rumble, but also myself, we are just happy that you are watching the show on Rumble. So continue to do so. And if you don't have the means and someone throws out one of those subscriptions, go ahead and just grab one. We got some serious spam in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and get that out of there. And let us, for the last bit of time we have today, so that we don't go on for absolutely forever, let's talk about a dig that I did over the weekend. I put this up on Truth Social because, actually, let's find Donald Trump first. It would have been wonderful if I had prepared this in advance. And usually I do, but that requires thinking through every single thing I'm going to talk about in the show. And I'm never able to do that because we kind of always just operate on the fly. We go slightly ordered and slightly by the seat of our pants. And by our pants, I mean my pants. My royal pants. Rather than the royal we, just my royal pants. There's nothing royal about my pants. And oh, by the way, I think this might be worth it in relation to the response to the Kendrick Lamar performance and the stop racism and all that. Donald Trump pointed out subtly on Saturday, in a way that people wouldn't immediately grasp, an issue of racism happening in South Africa against whites. South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. A massive human rights violation is happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, because of this, I will be cutting off all aid to South Africa until further notice. So, what should we take the performance delivered to us on television by the NFL over the weekend in light of that post? And I would suggest that those are related. Nobody else has to go along with that with me, but hey. So Donald Trump over the weekend not only dismissed the archivist at NARA being the agency in the center of the Trump documents hoax, he also dismissed David Rubenstein as the chairman of the Kennedy Center. And the Kennedy Center, as far as elite society goes, is just about one of the most important, or most prestigious, I should say, appointments that a person could get in, let's say, civic life. The Kennedy Center is actually connected to the American federal government, but it is extremely prestigious. And the former chair of the Kennedy Center was none other than a man named David Rubenstein, or Rubenstein. And Trump trolled him over the weekend in this post right here. Welcome to the Kennedy Center. Donald Trump, an AI picture portrayed as the conductor of the entire orchestra. Donald Trump replaced David Rubenstein as chair of the Kennedy Center with none other than Donald Trump. He made himself the new chair of the Kennedy Center. Here is that post by Donald Trump. Let's read through this. At my direction, we are going to make the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. great again. I have decided to immediately terminate multiple individuals from the board of trustees, including the chairman, who do not share our vision for a golden age in arts and culture. We will soon announce a new board with an amazing chairman, Donald J. Trump. Just last year, the Kennedy Center featured drag shows, specifically targeting our youth. This will stop. The Kennedy Center is an American jewel and must reflect the brightest stars on its stage from all across our nation. For the Kennedy Center, the best is yet to come. Donald Trump is now the new director of the Kennedy Center. So David Rubenstein, no more at the Kennedy Center, and a woman named Colleen Shogan is no more as the archivist at the National Archives. So let's go into Colleen Shogan, because on Saturday afternoon, I was thinking about the archivist. The archivist thing has always been a source of great interest to me, because as I go through these various periods in history, trying to figure out just how much our country has been infiltrated, usurped, overthrown, and inverted, one of the things I notice is that our historical record is being changed. I wrote a piece called The Sides of History on the Substack, imyourmoderator.substack.com, years ago. I think it was nearly 3 years ago now. And in that piece, I talked about how history is written by the winners. And once the winners win, they rewrite the history to make it seem as though they were not the winners before. In fact, they were the minority. They were the victims. In fact, they've always been the victims. And they were able to rise above to become the winners. And now all of that is history. And we get that cycle over and over and over again. And if you understand how that works and how the winners get to write the history, and they are also in position permanently as society's winners, well, then all they have to do is continue swapping. This was the original episode on the old switcheroo. And if you go on Rumble and search I'm Your Moderator switcheroo or Be Reasonable the switcheroo, you'll probably find it. In fact, maybe I should just find that right now so that people don't have to. But they switch the victim and aggressor role, or victim and oppressor, in kind of the more Marxist construct. They just switch those and continue on, so that they seem totally righteous in all of their victories and like the people we would want to have in charge, right? It's a good thing that they are always the winners. And so the constant rewriting of history and the constant replaying of these same stories in cyclical fashion all around the world, repeating again through time, has been one of my main focuses. So, of course, the people who protect the historical record are also part of that focus. So when I saw the thing about Colleen Shogan and how she announced that Trump had fired her with no notice, she put it up on X, formerly Twitter. I was fired. Woe is me. I have no idea why this happened. I began to look into the archivist, okay? And so I posted this Saturday afternoon on Truth Social. I'm your moderator on there as well. I've been looking into the archivist at NARA, who was just dismissed by Donald Trump, Colleen Shogan. It turns out she's associated with David Rubenstein, the global regime elite philanthropist, David Rubenstein. The same David Rubenstein who Trump just dismissed as the chairman of the Kennedy Center. David Rubenstein is an elite even among the global regime elite. He also happened to start the Rubenstein Center for White House history. Turns out his senior vice president and director of the center was Colleen Shogan. The following is a working conspiracy theory, and I welcome feedback. Okay, so this is my theory about what's happening here, about what their relationship would have been, and you can play the reverse on it as well, and maybe it is the reverse. Knowing what we know about presidential records held at presidential libraries, like Obama's, for instance, and Biden's Senate records held at the University of Delaware and the Penn Biden Center and some office. Is it too much to suspect that the Rubenstein Center may be serving that same purpose for records moved from NARA? The machine, of course, says no, but if it were to ever come to light that the Center for White House History happened to have NARA docs, it would be a simple mistake, cleared up quickly by commie bureaucrats. This is very interesting to say the least. Okay, so the idea here is, and this is some of the stuff I attached to prove out this theory. Colleen Shogan was at the Rubenstein Center for White House History. Same guy who was the chair of the Kennedy Center. And I go on, I'm having a conversation with the machine about, close the wrong window there, about some of the claims regarding Rubenstein's role within the global regime. He is the president of the Alfalfa Club. We went deep into the Alfalfa Club and its purpose on Saturday night on Devolution Power Hour. I recommend that episode highly to everyone if you want to hear more about this and about his role. John Harold did extensive work, Patel Patriot, did extensive work, devolution.link. Read the Devolution series. Devolution 14 is almost entirely about David Rubenstein. David Rubenstein owns a copy of the Magna Carta, okay? The guy collects official historical documents. He wants to possess all of the history. He has his name on a Holocaust museum so that he can own the official history of the Holocaust. Now he's going to own the official history of the White House. And we're told that this center will just be a nice place where school kids can come for field trips and learn about the great history of the White House and the people who built it, who we're told are all black slaves, right? That was the woke agenda. They let us know that, oh, slaves built that house. So it's actually not the American people's house. It's a house built by black slaves. And we have to recognize that all the time. And so I'm sure that David Rubenstein's history will show that. The idea is that he has this organization that has some of these historical documents. Therefore, if there are historical documents from NARA that they just didn't want the Trump regime to ever get its hands on, knowing that they weren't going to have the level of infiltration and the level of bureaucratic deep state stability that they had throughout the first Trump term, well, then they would have to get rid of those documents. They would have to move them out of NARA. So you would need someone in NARA willing to do that, who could then move them to this other location. So I would suggest that Colleen Shogan, who was appointed by the fake president, Joe Biden, could have been brought in for that very role, to have access to all of NARA as the archivist for a matter of months after leaving the Rubenstein Center for White House History. She was the senior vice president and executive director of the Center for White House History. Joe Biden appointed her on August 3rd of 2022. 2022, I believe. That's right. 5 days before the Mar-a-Lago raid with the documents hoax, okay? She was appointed to fill the role of a man named David Ferrero, who announced his retirement in April of that year. The deputy at that point, a woman named Deborah Seidel-Wall, took his role as archivist. Or maybe it's Wald. I think it's Wall. So she became archivist. And then Colleen Shogan was appointed 5 days before the Mar-a-Lago raid, but she was not confirmed until May of the next year. So the Biden nominee, Biden, the fake president, of course, was not confirmed by the similarly illegitimate false reality layer Senate for 9 months, a very, very long time. Prior to that, she was the senior vice president and director of the Center for White House History. That's a very strange delay in there. Now, in the meantime, Deborah Seidel-Wall was dealing with the communications about the Trump documents and about the Biden documents. So her official history is in there. And she's actually an interesting character because some of these letters, let me see if I can pull this letter up. We didn't discuss this on Saturday. Darn, let me see if I can find this. We did not discuss this on Saturday, but I would love to find this letter again. Where did I put it? So she had a letter involving the Trump documents, and the issue with the documents was that Trump and his lawyers were going to claim executive privilege to the point where the incumbent president could not view certain presidential documents. And the argument was that an incumbent president, a sitting president, should always have access to whatever government documents he needed to be able to fully execute his role and his duty as president. And that is, I think, a principle that we can probably all get behind. Here is that letter. This letter was to Evan Corcoran. And I focused on this paragraph right here at the top of the third page. The Assistant Attorney General has advised me, this is Deborah Seidel-Wall. Let me just check her name to be sure. Deborah Seidel-Wall. Apologies. Apologies both to her and to you. The Assistant Attorney General has advised me that there is no precedent for an assertion of executive privilege by a former president against an incumbent president to prevent the latter from obtaining NARA presidential records obtaining from NARA presidential records belonging to the federal government, where, quote, such records contain information that is needed for the conduct of current business of the incumbent president's office and that is not otherwise available. And so that seems like an entirely plausible and principled rationale for why those documents should have been made accessible to the Biden administration. Now, we know that there are many other extenuating circumstances here that are not mentioned in the letter, but the point is, when going through these things, not to analyze whether or not the action a given official or a given judge or politician or anyone else is not to analyze whether or not those things help Donald Trump in the short term. Like, everybody hates Amy Coney Barrett for some reason because they're like, well, Amy Coney Barrett, she's always making these anti-Trump decisions. We can't even depend on her as a conservative. Well, what are you talking about? First of all, the Supreme Court, we're probably going to have to see at some point, is as legitimate or illegitimate, as these other bodies in this illegitimate government. And maybe we saw that in 2020 and 2021 when they refused to take up a case about election fraud in an election that was obviously stolen. Maybe the Supreme Court was illegitimate from that time. Regardless, the point is not to judge whether or not a decision helps or hurts Donald Trump and MAGA in relative to that particular issue. It's to find out whether or not that decision was made in a principled way relative to the original Constitution. And if it is, even if it's not a good decision for us, it is good for the end goal, which is to get back to that original Constitution and potentially maybe further from there. But right now, that's supposed to be the law of the land, and we need to drive as hard as we can in that direction, getting back to that. And so we should welcome when a government official is doing something by the book, all right? And if they do something by the book, then that's what it is, unless they're violating like genuine constitutional principles. But it's important at every element or every moment to understand whether or not that person is executing their fiduciary duty in the right way in whatever actions they take. And so it's hard to make an argument against Deborah Steidel-Wall from that perspective, but I'm open to her still being a bad person. Let me be very clear. I'm not trying to defend any of these people from charges of corruption, but she was the person dealing with all of these issues from the moment of David Ferrero's announced retirement up until Colleen Shogan was finally confirmed 9 months later. So she had basically a year plus where she was the archivist. She was the deputy acting as the archivist, and now she's back to being the deputy. So all of this was very interesting to me. Colleen Shogan is both the archivist for the government at NARA and for David Rubenstein's White House History Center. Now, the other interesting aspect of this is that NARA is considered one of these kind of independent agencies. It used to be under the General Services Administration, the GSA, but it was taken out in 1984 and made a quote unquote independent agency. But the thing is, there aren't independent agencies. That's not a real thing. It's preposterous. It is an abomination relative to the Constitution to think that there could be independent agencies. And these agencies are consistently stood up through a presidential executive order. We are told that they must remain in place based on the fact that Congress has provided a statutory basis for their existence as well, and has chosen to fund the agency. And because of the way they write that statute to set up the agency as a quote unquote independent agency, they are immune from executive branch oversight, despite being part of the executive branch under the president's direct purview as the plenary authority of everything that happens in the executive branch. We're told that they are nonetheless independent and that they're somehow set up as a check on presidential power. So what we have is the Congress usurping presidential authority. That is not a check and balance. That is a usurpation. They are saying, and they are still arguing, that they are able to set up an agency in the executive branch, make that agency independent, fund that agency, and because they have made that agency independent and continue to fund it, that means the president has to allow it to run however it wants and cannot eliminate its funding. There is no basis for independent agencies anywhere in the Constitution. I say over and over again, these things cannot exist constitutionally, and the president can eliminate them at any time. And that is true. The president can eliminate them, and they're going to fight back on that. And the courts may assist them in fighting back on that. But nonetheless, that's where we need to get. And arguments toward these agencies being important in some way are not arguments toward these agencies actually being important or having a reason to exist. And those arguments, even if we agreed with them, would not override the fact that constitutionally they can't exist and that the president has no responsibility other than statutorily to fund them or allow them to continue. But that itself will and should be overturned by the courts if they are legitimate, because it has to be overturned. The idea that the Congress can stand up these agencies, fund them, and then force the president to just allow them to function under the executive branch without the president going along with it is crazy. That is 100% a usurpation of presidential authority and the presidential roles. All right, let's take one more little break here to check on the chat, and then we will have some final comments and get going. Elwood C. wrote, Chris, is it possible you're speaking of the new White House channel? The new White House channel on Rumble, the White House channel? Yeah, I guess. Sure, that's possible. This could be their official platform going on. Donald Trump has said many times that Truth Social is the real voice of America. People choose not to believe it. They choose to believe that Truth Social is just some rinky-dink little platform that doesn't actually do the things people want it to do, and that it's, not good enough for many people to use. And hey, everything is everybody's choice. If that's what you want to do, then everyone has the right to do that. I've chosen instead to use it as one of my main platforms because I believe that there's a future there, and I think that that will matter. And I guess we'll see. Sorry about the spam in the chat, by the way. I'm trying to get rid of it, and it's not always working. Ali Stussy, $10. Chris, I love your perspective. I was wondering if you have suggestions on how we can let Trump know that we want more with regards to the tax cuts per the conversation a few days ago. Well, everybody's got to talk about it. They got to talk about it in their own personal conversations. They got to talk about it on social media. That's it. If they have it all, and they have the ability to analyze it all the time, and they do have it all, and they do have that ability, then it behooves the people to demand better. There's no way we're going to get better unless the people demand better, which means demanding better online and making the communists that you still talk to mad. And if they want to argue, just don't argue with them. Be like, sorry, commie, not today. Or, hey, commie, you don't really still believe that, do you? You don't have to argue with these people. You don't have to prove anything to them. If they're going to call you a spreader of disinformation, they've probably been doing it for years. Just let them continue. Who cares? Move on without them. All right? This operation is not about waking up the normies. Okay? That is a good way for us to reframe some things. Well, hey, hopefully some people will wake up as a result of what they saw. Well, maybe, but that's not why it happened. Okay? It's not all just an elaborate thing. We got to wake up these normies. We got to wake up these normies. People have been telling me that Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly have been waking up the normies for these last few years. And then it just so happens that they're going back to Fox. They were all based in red pill. Oh, they're independent media now. They're on our side. They're waking up the normies. What if they're not? What if they're not? And instead, all the truthers and the Q influencers and the NormieCon influencers and the GOP establishment influencers and the Ron people and the Nikki Haley people, what if they're all just wrong about that? And instead, they're convincing everybody to simply listen to the mainstream media forever. Tucker Carlson's still got one of the biggest shows in the world. Joe Rogan's still got one of the biggest shows in the world. Truthers can't stop spreading their based in red-pilled takes, even though they're 3 years behind an informational timeline or more. How in the world is that the point of the operation? Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly waking up the normies. You know what wakes people up? Jarring situations in their own lives that force them to understand things are not as they were before. Okay? The world around you has changed, and you need to adapt to that new world around you. These people are prevented from having that experience because the mainstream media characters on the uniparty left and the uniparty right are keeping them in a place where they still believe that the world is as it was before and is going back toward how it was before. And I don't know how it's possible that the truth community still believes it's good that they're still there, while no one's ever actually trying to tell them the truth. That is, that's a psyop. And if you're confused about what the psyop means, that means other people are confused about it. Because if you're exercising your discernment all the time and you admit that that might just be some commie propaganda, some corporate globo homo sports propaganda, if you believe there's a chance of that, then maybe it's not the best thing to communicate to everybody that the white hats have taken over and that all of this is being done for the good of patriots. It might give us an advantage in the end because we've played the cards better and the situation now just benefits us. But maybe it's time that the most based and red-pilled people on earth stop telling everybody that it's a good idea to listen to Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly and all of these other people who are clearly involved in an organized info op telling the same stories at the same time for years and years and years and years and years, while truthers tell them that it's for the sake of waking up the normies. The normies aren't awake. And yet everybody's still arguing with them in text groups and chat groups and sending them links and sources. It's almost like the people who thought they were awake the whole time haven't actually woken up and instead are putting themselves back to sleep and everybody else. And this is the Grand Cultural Lullaby. They're singing it to everyone. They're not making any secrets about it. We're just choosing to believe that because we want to watch television and feel like everything's great, we're going to lie about what we're seeing. It's mind-boggling to me. A couple more Rumble rants came in. Sorry, just joining in. Obviously, you are on a dig that I wanted to hear more about too. That's Ali Stussy. I will finish that dig in just a second. Snowcat operator, the private Rockefeller Archive holds records of hundreds of NGOs, including that of the Trilateral Commission, the Asia Society, the Ford Foundation, etc. Source materials per Wikipedia, he says. $5 Rumble rant. Thank you, Snowcat. Thank you for that information. That's very interesting. So this is kind of a thing that has gone on forever. Do the Rockefellers have some connection to the Alfalfa Club? Because the dig we did on DPH on Saturday made it very clear that the Alfalfa Club's maybe main purpose is to control the world by controlling history and historical artifacts, which is also the plot of the video game Assassin's Creed, one of my favorite video games of all time, if not my favorite video game of all time. And I think it is. I have spent a lot of time in my life playing video games, and I still do every now and then. So again, it's not judging about the ways you want to entertain yourself when you're not doing this. But it's important to understand it. I said to everybody, I'm just showing that off. My good friend, John Harold, by the way, I was on with him, the Daily Herald today. You can see that in replay on Badlands Media. We discussed some of this. John does that show 5 days a week, does a great rundown of the news in an hour. Deep state connections here to David Rubenstein, everything. His parents are from Ukraine. Wikipedia calls his dad a postal clerk. And somehow the son of a postal clerk, the Jewish son of a Ukrainian postal clerk, became one of the most powerful men in the world. What an amazing success story. History is written by the winners. David Rubenstein is one of history's greatest winners. Also one of the founders of the Carlyle Group. The Carlyle Group, of course, featured one George W. Bush. I noted that Patel Patriot also pointed out Rubenstein's connection to the Holocaust Museum. I said, does this guy want to own history? Is he rewriting the official history right now? That was obviously the purpose of AI, funnel everyone back into the central narrative, getting everyone back on the same page as a new history was conditioned. He also reminds me that I forgot to mention the fake president, Joe Biden, giving him a presidential Medal of Freedom. We just saw that like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Joe Biden giving a presidential Medal of Freedom to this guy and also George Soros. Joe Biden is not a fake president in David Rubenstein's history. The fake news of right now is a false history in 50 years or 100 years as people from that time look back. They'll be seeing the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN, Politico, USAID's Politico. And that will be the official history of this time. That will be what really happened. Donald Trump was Hitler and we were racists. Okay? That's what the future history David Rubenstein and his friends are preparing for us. That's what it says. Right? Fake news is future history. The history we believe is the real history, the official history right now, is the fake news from back then. And you can read the transfer agreement. I mentioned it earlier. Edwin Black, the author of the transfer agreement, has a lot of the original source documentation of all the things he's saying, including some of the fake news from that time. And he even talks about how it was a propaganda push to let the rest of the world know that the Nazis are committing all these atrocities and they need to boycott the Nazis. Why? To shut down the German economy. In the same way that our economy is threatened being shut down, the same way they try to shut down Venezuela's economy and any other country that will go against the regime's agenda. They want to control trade routes, shipping routes, finance, media, and resources. And if none of that works, it's military. And so the media is the first thing. They propagandize people to get them to get back on the same page so that they will willingly, happily accept the incentive and punishment structure and go along with the program exactly as they're supposed to. So fake news of that time is the history we read right now about that time, believing it's all real. The fake news we see in the world right now is preparing a future history. It's people like David Rubenstein, if they are the winners once again, will have that be the official history of this time. We will be the losers. Trump will be Hitler. We will be the Nazis. We will be the racists. We will be everything they tell us right now that we are. If that fake news of right now becomes the history. And so with that in mind, which one are you helping to write while promoting the waking up of normies at the expense of people simply telling the truth? We are told again and again and again that people in positions of power and influence are not required to tell the truth because the entire purpose is to wake up the normies. And every time they tell a false view of reality right now, that future history is becoming more cemented in the record of right now. And we're excusing it because we have convinced ourselves that the point here is waking up the normies while they're not being woken up and while we're not attempting to simply instead demand that the truth be told by people of power, wealth, and influence. Why is it okay for the people with the biggest platforms to lie to the normies? Okay. Why is it okay when we eschew USAID propaganda all around the world and here, but we totally accept corporate global homo sports propaganda because it's the manly NFL doing the fashion shows, not one of those woke companies? Look how red, white, and blue it all is. This is so patriotic. Well, sure. It's patriotic if you're willing to lie all the time. And I'm going to try one more of these Rumble ads before we go. I have a dog, and this is about dogs, and I love dogs. So let's have a word from Positive. If you have a dog, we've all been there. Our pup goes from full energy to sick and miserable in an instant, and at the worst times. Then we're calling the vets in the middle of the night or on weekends trying to find a clinic that will take us in. It's a terrible way to manage our dog's health, not to mention our stress levels and our monthly budget. That's why people are getting the Pet Emergency Kit by Positive. It contains critical medications and supplies that can not only keep you out of the veterinary office, but may even save your dog's life. Their kits contain critical medications like activated charcoal, styptic powder, and more. It might save your dog's life. Head over to positive.com and use code STUDIO to get 15% off your Pet Emergency Kit. And you can use that QR code right there on the side of your screen, or go visit positive, PAWCitiv.com to get your emergency kit. And I actually kind of like this because I do this stuff for myself now as well. Go on to one of the, kind of new pharma portals and get whatever pharmaceuticals I think I might need. I stock up on stuff like ivermectin and fenbendazole. I just have it in supply. I don't know if it works. I don't know if it's a good solution. I'm not advertising anything right now. I'm just saying I have that. And if there's some medication that my dog might need, I'm going to have that too, because I don't take my dog to vets because vets require you to get your dog vaccinations. And if you haven't figured out yet that they're testing out vaccination technology on our little furry friends find it out fast because vaccines are actually terrible for pets. And, or they can have terrible consequences, let's say. Some people will be like, oh, that's not true. You can't say all vaccines are bad for your pets. Yeah, you probably believe that the polio vaccine's great too. And now I'm getting myself canceled off YouTube. It started out as an ad, and instead I got myself canceled off YouTube. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. That is a 3-hour tour. Just like Gilligan's Island. Now we have shipwrecked. We're going to have to spend forever on this island. Gilligan's Isle? Someone in chat will know. Anyhow, I will be back on Wednesday. We're going to do the subscriber stream on Wednesday. If you want to join Wednesday's show and get it before it goes free next Sunday morning, then you need to be a paid subscriber at imyourmoderator.substack.com. That is how you will get the link to the Wednesday subscriber live stream. And otherwise, for the normal show, I will be back on Friday. But for you subscribers, I will be back on Wednesday at the same reasonable time on the same Reasonable Podcast Network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns never worked, and Joe Biden was never president.
Well,
what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Ah!
And what's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
Let you down. We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What must be what?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon down on the range.